Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say welcome to each and every one of you this afternoon, this morning, this midday, midnight, whatever time of the day it is, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and welcome to this our United Nations General Assembly 75 session, the 75th session, International Consulting Cabinet side event with the Department of the Northeastern USA from the ICC International Consulting Cabinet. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to have all of these wonderful speakers here with us today. We have speakers from all parts of the world. We have speakers who are a part of various organizations. We have speakers who are well versed and well gifted and talented and have a passion for peace. They have a passion for youths. They have a passion for women, children. They have a passion for nature. They have a passion for everything that we can think of on the face of the earth. And we are thankful for all of you for being here today to share your knowledge, to join us in this discussion. We hope that all of our viewers, all of our listeners, all of our guests around the world viewing us either on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, joining us here as well on this live broadcasting. We hope that you all would enjoy. You will be able to learn something today that you can be able to implement and you can be able to carry out within your region or your community or even your country or even in your own personal life. Let me say thank you very much to all of the speakers who are here and availing and dedicating their time and their services. So with the mission of the International Consulting Cabinet, as well as the Department of our Northeastern USA Affairs, brings the commemoration of the 75th UN General Assembly to the knowledge of the departments of the International Consulting Cabinet members. Those purposes is to bring the mission of the ICC to join the global community to the commemoration of the UN 75th committee, to the vision of His Eminence, the Right Honorable Dr. Phillip Phinn on the International Consulting Cabinet. In assessing the future, we need to, in addressing global issues through the International Consulting Cabinet and reaffirm our collective commitment to sustainable development, as well as the 2030 agenda. The Departments of International Consulting Cabinet will commit to the team by presenting statements on the future they attend, excuse me, to address the future statements based on respect to the theme of the UN General Assembly 75th session within the UN annual 75th year. The future we want, the ICC we need, we would like to reaffirm our collective commitment to sustainable development and confronting COVID-19 through effective joint action. So the purpose of the program here today is to commemorate with the global community on the UN 75th to educate and share among ourselves on 5 key areas. 1, the future we want and the International Consulting Cabinet we need. Reaffirming commitment to sustainable development goals in line with the work of the General Assembly. 3, confronting COVID-19 through effective joint action. 4, presentation of statements from departments of ICC, which is bringing UN General Assembly practices to the ICC so we can be able to better and more effectively implement and serve. And lastly, the resolution from the team for further action on the work of the ICC from the 75th year. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is His Excellency Dr. Devon Bannister. I am the Director General for Youth, Music and Cultural Affairs here at the ICC Consulting Cabinet. At this time, let me once again say welcome to you. My co-host for this evening will be none other than Ambassador Fawad Ali Langa. He will be my co-host who will be working with me here today. So from time to time, you will hear myself and you will hear him as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me encourage everyone to please sit back, relax, enjoy, as we have a lot to go over. We have a lot to share with everyone, and we hope that everyone will be able to receive something from us today that they of themselves can be able to use as they go forward. So without any further ado, let me welcome our first speaker, who is he is the mission, he is the visioner, he is the president general, he is the chancellor for Psych International University and Seminary, he is a bishop, overseeing multiple churches around the world. He is a father, he is a grandfather, he is a mentor, he is everything that we can think about in the book. If you're looking for someone to be your mentor, you're looking for someone to guide you, you're looking for someone to give you directions, you're looking for someone to tell you the truth, when if you like it or not, whether if it hurt or it doesn't hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man. God has really blessed him in tremendous ways, giving him the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that he can be able to deal. This is a very humble young man. I say young because indeed he is young. He has availed himself and sees the potential in many, and allow them the opportunity that they of themselves can rise to the occasion, that they of themselves can be able to serve and to make something of themselves and to be a contribution to society. This is the man who God has blessed with the knowledge that he can be able to put together this consulting cabinet here today, that all of us can be here to have this wonderful and fruitful discussion. He is the visionary and founder for ICC, the International Consulting Cabinet. He is the President General for WOLMI, Word of Life Christian, Word of Life Ministries International, as well as he is the Chancellor for Psych International University and Seminary. All three organizations governed by one, which is WOLMI, who is accredited by the United Nations under ECOSOC with special consultative status. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome His Excellency, the Right Honorable Dr. Phillip S. Phinn, OEA, visionary and founder of WOLMI, as he comes to give us the mission and the purpose of ICC.
Thank you, Ambassador Bannister. I want to say pleasant good afternoon to all our speakers, our presenters, all Kingdom ambassadors and secular ambassadors that are a part of this panel. Good afternoon. I just want to share briefly the purpose of establishing the International Consulting Cabinet. When we got our consultative status back in '96, we still today, we are the first and only full gospel church in the world to have this status. And still today, we are the only organization that have the status in my country of origin, or birth, Jamaica. And so we had to go to the Ministry of, Foreign Affairs to, of course, present our credential and to be registered with them. And as I said, still today, we're the only organization in the country that have the status. So the government reached out to us and asked us in what way we could help. So what we did, we established a national consulting cabinet, and we were able to supply each government ministry with an expert from our organization and from our network. And they volunteered their service, to assist, in various areas, agriculture, education, security, you name it. And we were able to cover all the government ministry. Well, as years passed, and I've now migrated to the USA and somewhat to Canada. We decided that we must do this not only to serve one country, but to serve all nations as much as is possible. And so we decided to put together the International Consulting Cabinet to model it with the various arm of the our specialized agency of the United Nations. As you may well aware that every national or, or federal ministry that you could think of, there is the parallel at the international level. If you think, for example, now we have this pandemic. If you think, I mean, all health ministers, you know, from national countries are relating to world health. And of course, trade minister would relate to world trade, and education minister, for example, and science and culture would relate to UNESCO. So just to give you an example. So we have established the cabinet to parallel those areas so that um, we can train, folks in our network to be able to become advisors and consultants to their national or federal government as the opportunity arises, because there are several of us at this point, even as I speak, even young Ambassador Bannister is part of this. We are in the process of, we're advising various, government, and we're working on various projects that will be assisting various national government, such as helping some of them to um, even reorganize their national debt and refinance it, and all different kinds of maneuvering we are doing to help national government at this time. And so we see this cabinet as uh, to equip and train kingdom ambassadors, Christian ambassadors, so that when the opportunity presents itself, then we will not be feeling in the dark to try to find out, well, how do I do this? Where do I go? Where do I begin? I am a firm believer that preparation is important, so that when opportunity comes, it comes to those who are prepared. And we have gotten some key opportunities, in recent times. And if I wasn't prepared, if Dr. Bannister wasn't prepared, if Dr. April wasn't prepared, then we'd have to pass up those opportunities. But thanks be to God, we were kind of 10 step ahead, and so we were able to fit right in to assist some of these countries and nations and even other organizations that needed our help. And so that's the vision, because we have so many skilled persons, in the Christian community, and all they do is to go to their little world, their little job in maybe in a bank in Manhattan, and they go home and they go to their little maybe church and so forth, and um, they are hidden, and they wonder if this is what life is all about, and how can I fulfill the great commission of the master, which says go into all the world, and be a blessing to the nations, right? And so Wulmai has taken on the challenge to be able to fill that gap and that void. So in a nutshell, this is basically, why we have put together this international consulting cabinet. I think my 3 minutes is up, and I see the moderator, looking at his timepiece. So I yield back to you, Sir Bannister.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Devin. Thank you very much, Honorary Dr. Phillip. I was really amazed. And once again, we are really honored to have you on board. Ladies and gentlemen, before we can move to another speaker, let me show you a very quick insight video behind that. There you go.
We can be.
We must be the first generation
to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We will live in a world
Where nobody
anywhere
lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
Wakes in the morning asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world
Where no child has to die.
Diseases we know how to cure.
And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
Where everyone
goes to school. And education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive and be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is head down.
We will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
And proper toilets
at home, at school, and at work.
We will live in a world where there's sustainable energy for everyone.
heat, light, and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper and new wealth
Lead to decent jobs.
For everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
Our infrastructure and our
best innovations.
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
we will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
Are defeated
Inside our countries,
and between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
What we consume.
Planet where we put back
What we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back from
climate change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas. Restore
and protect
life on land.
The forests.
Animals,
the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
where all governments are open.
and answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people.
Work together.
Partnerships of all kinds.
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
For sustainable development.
let's get to work.
Yes, indeed. That is actually about the goals, of course, the global goals. And that is the reason, the core idea behind all these 17 goals is about the 5 P's: people, prosperity, planet, peace and justice. And one of the biggest thing is actually the partnership. Let's move further. Over to you, Ambassador Dr. Devin, to move ahead with that, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me say thank you very much to our visionary, Dr. Phillip Phinn, Ambassador Phinn, for enlightening us about the vision of WOLMI and the ICC. And thank you very much to you, Ambassador Fawad, for giving us that brief video there so that we can be able to get an understanding and some insight as to what we are talking about here. So for those our viewers looking and listening, at least they won't be lost. They will have some form of a direction as to where we are going. You know, the Secretary General has said that in light of the number of serious challenges currently facing the world, and the fact that many people are turning their backs on the idea of international cooperation, which is multilateralism, there is not a lot to celebrate in the 75th anniversary year of the UN. He instead called for measures that would increase appreciation for the need for and value of international cooperation and international institutions. And here today we have a number of various institutions, both locally and internationally, that are partnering to be able to better assist and better serve and educate everyone. So our next guest is His Excellency Mr. Samson Itiboji, if I'm correct. Please correct me after when you come on. but His Excellency Mr. Sampson. He is the Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative for the Permanent Mission of Nigeria to the United Nations. He will come and he will speak to us on the UN 75th, the future we want and the future the future of the UN we need. Over to you, Ambassador Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by saying how truly honored I am to be a part of this event, one in a series of events marking the 75th anniversary of the existence of the United Nations, otherwise known as UN 75. I would like to express appreciation to Dr. Phillip, Phinn, founder of the International Consulting Cabinet, an initiative of the Word of Life Ministries International, an organization with the prestigious and coveted special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, of the United Nations, and his entire team for their good work dedicated towards serving humanity. Also permit me to acknowledge with deep affection my dear and indefatigable sister, Dr. Ada Okika, whose personal outreach sealed my participation at this event. Thank you, Doc. Thank you all. And I am very, very pleased to be amongst you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the organizers have rightly noted, the celebration of UN 75 is not simply a celebration of the United Nations. It is a celebration of the whole world. It is a celebration of all, for all, by all, through all, and with all peoples and nations of the world. It is an opportunity for every voice to speak out and be heard. So our action today is part of that international effort to collectively look at the past 75 years and craft a vision for the future, both in terms of the United Nations in particular, and also in terms of the world at large. It is both a time of celebration and of sober reflection, where we look at what we have done right, what we have done wrong, and what we still need to do. This introspective and prospective exercise is of the utmost importance because, as we know, and as the great philosopher Socrates once said, the unexamined life is not living. Thus, we take stock of the past, but we also plan for the future so that we can create the world that we need, making it a better place for you and for me. As we reflect on the future we want and the United Nations we need, it is important that we recall the circumstances that led to the creation of the United Nations. None of us can forget the horrors of the 2 world wars with so much untold human misery, human deprivation, and human suffering. Basic sense of decency and fellow feeling was jettisoned as human beings were treated without any regard for their dignity and fundamental rights. Human beings almost became mere statistics, as we are informed that just from the World War II alone, between 70 and 85 million human beings died. Not just that human beings died, but they were subjected to some of the most heinous, despicable, and barbaric forms of death the human imagination could conjure. So, coming from the horrors of the world wars and in response to the failure of several attempts to prevent or stop these tragedies, the United Nations was formed. From the ashes of those wars, the United Nations rose to ensure that through international cooperation, never again would the world experience such evils. Accordingly, the United Nations was formed with the pursuit of world peace and security as one of its major aims. Alongside the goal of entrenching the reign of peace in the world, the United Nations was also founded to help develop friendly relations among nations, to help improve the lives of all, and to help galvanize nations to work together in service of universal good for all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, since 24th October 1945, when the United Nations officially came into existence 75 years ago, the organization has continuously taken several steps to ensure fidelity to its founding charter. In addition to its 6 major organs, the United Nations has also created specialized agencies to help in the actualization of specific aspects of its mandate. That is why we have, for example, the World Health Organization to help the entire world navigate such issues as the current COVID-19 pandemic, and to more broadly ensure the attainment by all peoples of the highest possible level of health, which, as defined by World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Beyond its main organs and specialized agencies, the United Nations continues to strive to make the world a better place by coming up with treaties, conventions, and resolutions that deal with practically everything on Earth, above the Earth and below the Earth. Through these instruments, the UN provides not only guidance, but also direction for all. Crucially, from time to time, the UN evaluates its performance to see what needs to be done in order to create a better future for the world, thereby dealing with the question of its continued relevance. This is what led first to the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, in September of 2000, and then to the current Sustainable Development Goals in September of 2015, with the adoption of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This marked a pivotal point in contemporary human history, as all peoples and governments recommitted to creating the future that we want, where no one is left behind in partaking of the common good. Indeed, in this anniversary year, we also begin the decade of action and the delivery for the SDGs. In this connection, I'm happy to inform that during the SDG Moment event to mark the decade of action, which took place just yesterday, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, was one of the few select heads of state and government to address the August gathering and to reaffirm Nigeria's commitment to achieving the SDGs and creating the future we want for all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the UN, we judge, not war. Every nation speaks with every other nation, bearing in mind the sovereign equality of all nations. Just as we speak of and with every person in complete recognition of and respect for their inherent dignity and inalienable rights, we appeal to our collective sense of good will and good faith with preference for persuasion rather than coercion. It is therefore clear that to achieve its lofty aims and objectives, the United Nations must of necessity seek the path of international cooperation, mutual collaboration, and genuine partnerships. Simply put, the UN must follow the ethics of multilateralism. By its very definition, multilateralism is a call for collaboration and cooperation amongst the different and disparate entities that form the whole. It is a call for solidarity and partnerships to achieve a common objective, which no member, however strong and powerful, can accomplish on its own alone. Conscious of this truth, the founders of our prestigious organization created the United Nations 75 years ago explicitly on the premise that the significant global problems of the day can only be solved through solidarity and mutual cooperation. If international cooperation in the context of our collective commitment to multilateralism has ever been necessary, that necessity has never been more manifest than today. Never has the world experienced a pandemic of this magnitude since the creation of the United Nations. The COVID-19 pandemic has become a once-in-a-century pandemic with grave ramifications across every aspect of life and throughout every country of the world. It has created a perfect concatenation of instabilities, including political, social, economic, security, psychological, and even spiritual instabilities. Education has been truncated, just as the future of our children has been concomitantly put in jeopardy. Societies have been locked down in a bid to stem the spread of the virus. With this has come the practical grinding to a halt of most economies and socioeconomic activities. Indeed, COVID-19 has threatened to upend civilization and the very way of life of the human family as we have known it. I should like to stress that though the pandemic seems intractable and the challenges arising therefrom daunting, nothing can break or frustrate the collective will of the international community Together, we can do whatever we set out to do. Together, we can mobilize and will, in fact, mobilize to come up with truly effective and inclusive responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, thereby giving expression, direction, and solution to the yearnings of the international community. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before concluding, I would like to say a word about the invaluable role of CSO and NGOs, such as the Word of Life Ministries International, in crafting the future we want and the United Nations we need. While the United Nations is primarily an intergovernmental organization led by member states, the priceless place of civil societies has always been recognized. For example, during this conception stage of the United Nations, CSOs played key roles. We know that in the all-important task of drafting the Charter of the United Nations at the San Francisco Conference of 1945, a number of CSOs and NGOs, including Rotary International and Lions Club International, were specifically invited to help in the drafting process. Their work gave fresh perspectives and enriched the Charter. Furthermore, both the defunct MDGs and the current SDGs each have as their last goals global partnerships. This is a recognition that the MDGs could not have been achieved without partnership, just as the SDGs cannot be achieved without it. Partnership is the glue that brings all the goals together, the iron that sharpens the goals, the wine that enlivens the goals. This partnership is not simply government to government or simply the classic public-private partnership. It is the recognition of the fact that everyone, governments, CSOs, NGOs, faith-based organizations, private organizations, and all people of goodwill has a role to play in realizing our collective aspirations. It is at its core an affirmation of the need for inclusivity for all, where every voice is heard, where everyone has a place at the table, and where both hands reciprocally wash the other clean. It is this mutually, especially between government and CSOs, with each knowing the mandates of the other, that is necessary in building the future we want and the United Nations we need. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I should therefore like to conclude by stating that as we strive to build the future we want and the United Nations we need, the world cannot achieve this goal without international cooperation, mutual solidarity, and genuine partnership. Not one entity, however powerful, can achieve this alone. For as the great poet John Donne once said, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. As if the fact of globalization with its attendant phenomenon of interdependence had not already proven this thesis, the current COVID-19 pandemic has come to make this fact forever irrefutable. More importantly, we cannot make the world a better place if any part of the society is excluded, because what goes around comes around. Consequently, our future must be inclusive. Our future must carry everyone along. Our future must not leave anyone behind. This is precisely what the immediate past president of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency, Professor Tijani Muhammad Bande of Nigeria did when he made inclusion for all the cornerstone of his presidency. Let me quickly crave your indulgence to leave your meeting at some point to enable me attend to some equally pressing assignments. I thank you all for your kind attention. God bless.
Let me say thank you very much, His Excellency Ambassador Sampson. Thank you very much for giving us those enlightenments, for educating us, and for letting us know exactly how as nations together, coming together to form the UN, to be able to better assist, better serve, and better shape the world for us and for the young ones that's upcoming, for the younger generation to come as well. Thank you very much on behalf of the visioner, the founder of ICC and WOLMI, and as well as all of us here, as well as Dr. Ada, on behalf of herself as well. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. We know you're a very busy man. We know you might have to slip out at some point in time, but thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to brace us with your presence. and to speak to us on this, the UN 75th anniversary. Thank you very much, sir. So now, will my ICC have multiple departments? We are not just one, not just one single rigid area, but as the Chancellor, the Visionary, the President, as he said, we have multiple avenues, multiple areas in which we focus on, and we have set aside and created various departments, and each department is run by a particular individual, which basically sets up a team, sets up a board, and we function in the various areas. Like I said from the inception, I am the governor, the director for the Youth, Music, and Culture Affairs, and we have selected Ambassador Dr. Ada Okika to spearhead the Northeastern affairs. Why we selected her to spearhead the Northeastern affairs? Because she have what it takes to get the job done. She have the knowledge, she have the insight. God has really blessed her. I know every person here can say that at some given point in time, she has indeed been a blessing to you. And today, it's with great pleasure that ICC, upon the recommendation of others, recommended her that she spearhead the Northeastern Department, and she is the one who was very much instrumental in bringing us all here together for this event. So Dr. Ada, thank you very much for availing yourself. Thank you very much for bracing us with your presence and for committing to the task, for committing to the challenge, and for leading us in this time. We know your connections, we know your field, we know your expertise, we know your commitment. It will not go in vain, and we thank you very much on behalf of the ICC and the President. And here now she will come and she will speak to us on the UN 75th, the future we want, and the international consulting cabinet we need on the Northeastern end. So over to you, Ambassador Dr. Ada.
Thank you, Dr. Bannister, for that wonderful introduction. This is a very special event, and the significance of it is that it is being held at the time of the UN General Assembly 75 Session. I want to thank His Excellency, the Deputy Representative of Nigeria, Ambassador Sampson, for his time. I'm always very proud of my Nigerians when they honor a woman's invitation. So that shows that even when the whole world is talking on violence against women, Nigerian men are upholding women of Nigeria. So Ambassador, I thank you for your time. I know this is a very, very special time, and with all the goings and side events, both physical and virtual event in regarding the 75th session of the UN. So I thank you for that. And for that wonderful present, it's really a document of thought that paper will be extracted further by ICC department through the Northeastern Affairs, in line with addressing some of the peculiarities and challenges of the UN at 75 and the way forward. Thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge His Eminence, the Chancellor, Dr. Phillip Phinn, for his for giving me the opportunity and recognition, especially with this Northeastern Affairs of the US and the ICC. The department being the fact that it's responsible for 11 states and the United Nations. And that means how the significance of it, and him thinking that I can handle it. I appreciate him for his fatherly guidance and prayers. I want us to look at imagining the 5 P's on the mission of the International Consulting Cabinet. When we look at the global goals, which is 17 parts of 17 goals with 169 targets. And these goals we are grouped into 5 by world leaders. And that shows what we call the 5 Ps of the sustainable development and the 5 Cs of the 2030 agenda. Now, the objective of these goals is to create a better world by 2030. Now, 5 years is gone, we have 10 more years. And in creating a better world, we need to find out how the world can end poverty, fight inequalities, and address the urgency of climate change. This is also why on the guide of these goals that the Chancellor, Dr. Phinn, came up with the vision for the International Consulting Cabinet as a platform to reach out to government, business people, civil society, faith-based organizations, kingdom ambassadors, and the general public to work together to build a better future for everyone. Now, working together for looking for other vision for everyone, that is one. And another thing is that with the fact that the SDGs are fast going away, the one we say 2030 agenda, it was a mark of 15 years. Now, out of these 15 years, 5 years is gone. And the Secretary General declared last year a decade of action that is to deliver the global goals, reminding us that the goals need action, needs activity, needs important move to ensure that all the 17 goals and 169 targets grouped under 5 Ps has to be achieved. There should be an action to achieve successes and results. So today, in line with this agenda, the progress, even though it's being made in many places, but overall action to meet the goals is not yet advancing at the speed or scale required. 2020, that is this year, needs to usher in a decade of ambitious action to deliver the goals by 2030. Unfortunately, this is hindered by Mr. COVID, and is also trying to scare us from achieving these, the global goals. So the decade of action calls for accelerating sustainable solutions to all the world's biggest challenges, ranging from poverty and gender to climate change, inequality, and closing financial gap. A clearer call by the Secretary of the United Nations in September 2019 noted that the Secretary General called on all sectors of society to mobilize for a decade of action on 3 levels. One is global action to secure greater leadership, more resources, and smarter solutions for sustainable development goals. The other section is the local action, embedding the needed transition in policies, budget, institutions, and regulatory framework of government, cities, and local authorities. And the third is people action, including by youth, civil societies, the media, the private sector, unions, academia, and other stakeholders to generate an unstoppable movement pushing for required transformation. Now we are still on yet the decade of action is challenged, of course, I just mentioned it's challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on all 74 SDGs has shown that what began as a health crisis has quickly become a human and social crisis. While the crisis is impairing progress towards SDG, it also makes the achievement all the more urgent and necessary. However, it is essential that recent gains are protected as much as possible. A transformative recovery from COVID-19 is pursued to address the crisis, reduces risk from future potential crises, and relaunched the implementation efforts to deliver the 2030 agenda and SDGs during the decade of action. Now we look at these five Ps of SDGs. We have the people. Now these 5 Ps are it made the 17 goals of SDGs to be grouped according to areas of each significant need. Now the people is looking at goal 1 to 5, which is talking about no poverty, end hunger, health and well-being, education, quality and inclusive education, and gender equality. Now, the planet is also looking at the second category, which includes the water sanitation, goal 12, goal 13, and goal 14, and goal 15. So now the third P is prosperity, and that has to look at the 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Of course, we look at the peace, which is solely rested on SDG 16. We look at the 17, which is also solely on partnership. So these are the grouping of all the 17 goals and targets, so that the 17 goals and targets, the 17 goals and 169 targets seems to find their way under these 5 Ps. And this relates to looking at the direction and how people like civil society, like NGOs, like government address their needs in order to solve some of these, to address the decay of the action of the SDGs. So we want to narrow this down to the reimagining 5 Ps of SDG on our ICC. Now, the mission of ICC is targeting 1, fulfilling the 915 assignment. Now, some of you, I want to know what is 915 assignment. Those of us who are not on here outside the ICC, is looking at Acts of Apostles chapter 9 verse 15. So one of the mission is fulfilling the ICC assignment. The other mission is to train, equip, and prepare the kingdom ambassadors to become consultants and advisors to government and private leaders. The third one is to sharpen our skills within the network of experts in our area of interest. The other one is give you, the ambassadors and kingdom ambassadors, the opportunity to develop your area of interest and expertise so that you will be ready when you are called to consult or advise. It also has the responsibility of meeting of leaders, learning from leaders to teach nations, an opportunity to attend United Nations NGO meetings as well as other departments of the United Nations meetings. So when we now imagine these, we look at the faith, the people. Who are the people that the ICC is focused on? It's looking at the faith-based organization. It's also looking at the government, private sector, and with specific assignment on SDG 1 to 5, just as we mentioned. It's trying to look at the other issues that has to deal with educating, training, addressing, empowering the kingdom ambassadors to be able to address the SDG 1 to 5 in their various communities. Now, we're also looking at the planet, the second P, planet 5, and the role of ICC, which stands on to global community. People in global community, as the ICC has spread all over the world, we're almost in all the countries, and planting and establishing the ICC programs and missions into those communities, which means we're addressing the SDG 6, SDG 12, 13, 14, and 15 as well. And also, we are also looking at the third P, which is prosperity. Now, under this, with the vision of the mission of ICC is ordering the leaders, to learn from leaders, to teach nations, prosper both in spirit and in principle, while considering the SDG 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And also, the fourth P is peace. Of course, we all know that peace is always standing on its note. And looking at the mission of ICC is focusing on sharpening our knowledge on skills and building our diplomatic knowledge on assignment 19 with attention on SDG 16. When the work is done through the ICC, and through the ministries and through their various departments, there is attention focused on trying to build minds in addressing conflicts and maintaining peace in various communities, and also togetherness and love. So the fifth one is the 5P is a partnership. Now, one of the missions says attend meetings of ECOSOC at global level, partnership with various departments of ICC and all stakeholders of World Mile, build integrative approach to achieving the 915 assignment success of SDGs, and work together to drive leadership, communication, support, management, work, integrity, and imagine the global growth and expansion of ICC along the 2030 development agenda. So what are we actually doing at the Northeastern Partnership, Northeastern Affairs, as well as ICC? In ensuring the commitment of ICC to the global agenda, we are focused on the objective, which is the assignment of 915, developed aligned with the global goals. So based on the 5 Ps and how we have run through those decades of action, you see that all the 17 goals and targets also align with the mission of ICC. Secondly, we are looking at the pillars of learning, with focus on learning to know, acquiring the instrument, building the curriculum for communities, environment to create the understanding or resources for learning how to learn the SDGs, how to learn along the assignment 915 and all the rest of them. So these are our integrative efforts, knowledge that we are building through this initiative. The other issue is learning to do. We are trying to apply the learned knowledge to daily life. When we talk to people in vulnerable situations, when we reach out in outreach and all the rest of them, when we do meetings, when we attend programs such as these in other things, we try to apply the learned knowledge of 915 to daily life to be able to act creatively and responsibly in our own environment. That's why we are, His Eminence has given the title of ambassadors, because we want us to be creative and responsible in our environment. You cannot be found wanting in very unnecessary habits when you carry the title of His Excellency or Her Excellency and you are an ambassadorship. So these are one of the things that revolves around the work of the ICC, and then trying to develop the competence to deal with many situations and to work in teams. The other one is learning to be, which is acquiring universally shared values, developing self-knowledge, becoming immersed in the community, culture, and development of learner personalities. This is also based on what we are learning, our personality, our contribution, our resourcefulness, areas of your skills and talents also is built around the shared values within the mission of ICC. Now we have learning to live together. Of course, that has been one of the visions of His Excellency, the Chancellor, on this, trying to promote community and social cohesion and peaceful coexistence, and being able to create diversity in people and their histories, tradition, beliefs, values, and cultures by developing and understanding others in the community and being interdependent. So we have imagined the future of ICC and 5 Ps for Kingdom ambassadors and leaders. So, and all the 5 Ps are all aligned to the 5 missions of the ICC, as has been relayed before. And what is our personal style and focus in the community to the decade of action? Now, our personal style, like in my own personal style, is the assignment of 915, and also focus on education, peace, partnership, and gender equality. This is in line with what we are doing, and that is why even in the ICC, we have a department for women and leadership, we have Department for Education, we have the Department for all those are existing, which means that the ICC is very much aligned, in line with this membership with ECOSOC, aligning the mission to suit with the global agenda. And then with the Northeastern affairs, our eye is on SDGs and assignment 915. And that is basically why we are here. The SDGs and assignment 9 to become the bone of content, become the strength of what we are doing within the Northeastern Department of the ICC. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Ada. As always, that is really great, I must say. Thank you very much for giving us a really deep knowledge and, of course, what perspective. In fact, I was not even much familiar about, and a special thing that I just came to learn about is itself 915. Definitely, I will work into and learn about more. But thank you very much for actually giving more knowledge, more deep related to the SDGs. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we can move further, let's having a quick another amazing video. Have a look into that. And here we
This is a very important story. The important story. In the midst of COVID-19, it's an historic opportunity to look at the facts of the world as it is, and then to focus on the solutions to some of our greatest problems.
Today, we feel the weight of history on our shoulders. The whole planet is at stake. The way we have been moving leads nowhere, and that we need to change course.
We need to reduce global emissions by 50% by 2030. This cannot go on. You know it, I know it, and we know what we need to do.
Poverty is not natural, it is man-made, so poverty is not inevitable.
Inequality for women is one of the world's great injustices, and it must be and will be swept away.
We are bringing young people to the table now, not as a token, but to take that baton, to take up the gauntlet, and to move forward.
Fear and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born.
It's a myth that each and every one of us doesn't have the ability to change the world dramatically and quickly. There is power in every decision we make.
In the 75 years since the United Nations was founded, the human race has never had to face a set of challenges like we do right now. But together, we can overcome them.
Thank you very much. Yes, over to you, Ambassador Dr. David. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Dr. Ada. Indeed, it was very excellent, well put together. And I know everyone here has also gathered some more insight in regards to this, in regards to the UN. And how we of ourselves can be able to be a part of it. The ICC International Cabinet really is an area where we can harness the various strengths, the various knowledges and expertise of individuals around the world, so that we can be able to be agents of change. We can be able to contribute to the advancement of life and the betterment of life. And as the video has just shown, where poverty is concerned, is something that is very much concerning around the world. While the portray you will see is this country looks bright and beautiful, but in some part and in some area of that country, you do have people suffering and struggling. And we really need to curb that. And without any further ado, Our next speaker, he is His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Dennis Anthony. He's the former Deputy President of the UN General Assembly from the 6th to 9th session. He will come and he will speak to us on reaffirming commitment to sustainable development goal in line with the work of the UN General Assembly member states. Ambassador Dennis, over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and my distinguished colleagues. When I look at the screen and this audience, when I look at William Graham, when I look at Dr. Ada, when I look at Dr. Judy, and the host of us, but particularly, the Right Honorable Phillip Phinn, I see disciples. And so today, I am very pleased to be in your presence. In order to reaffirm, we ought to have been committed. Therefore, I begin by welcoming on board anyone and all who have decided to devote to the Sustainable Development Goals, and to say that when the goals were adopted in 2015, they became our goals, the people's goals, as they are now, not the UN goals. Now, in this tug of war for sustainable development, it is very enabling to have a giant like the ICC and the Right Honorable Phillip Phinn on the International Consulting Cabinet pulling for the people. The timing to revegetate efforts is encouraging because of the mode of operation of COVID-19. Now, it leaves no one behind, regardless of your place or your kind. It travels across borders, sectors, and generations. Therefore, whether we commit or not to the SDGs, COVID-19 is moving along. How fast the world catches up with the containment and eradication will depend solely on how we close ranks, and in doing so, salvage the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We must first recognize that the pandemic is just a thick, sticky covering spread over all the challenges, the targets, and the goals that we set. The pandemic is a super distractor that sucks energy and resources away from climate crisis. At the same time, it has unmasked inequities and inequalities, fresh forms of violence that are an embedded injustice. As the support for global cooperation falters, we also observe the gasp. You know, there is a gasp, there's a gap that exists in this juncture, in this space that the pandemic has created. When the access and use of technology is almost indispensable today, we need rapid changes in technology infrastructure to reach all sectors of our population. Look at us today. Are we privileged that we can come together because we have this capacity? What about those who are not able to connect in the rural areas? Now, it is vital that the voice in the network of the ICC is raised on a higher octave at this critical time in the world. So let us ensure that our views, our apprehensions, and our concepts will reach the world leaders and senior UN officials so that it will inform the priorities and proposals generated by the UN for action. Now, the nagging issue that still confronts developing countries are more glaring now. The impact of digital technology for peace and justice as an efficient tool for the eradication of poverty, all forms of poverty and inequity. But there must be education on the use of technology as a liberator. Proper management and use of new technology has become critical. Now, the issues. A new era of conflict and violence has surfaced. The nature of conflict and violence has transformed. Remember, 75 years ago, why the UN was formed. It was bombing and mass destruction and distance. It used to send people to war. While today, conflicts now tend to be less deadly in this mass manner and often waged between domestic groups rather than states. Now let us look at the epidemic of violence and killing that's becoming more frequent and are equally destructive. Now, lethal weapons and weaponization of boats and drones and cyber attacks are just some of the new viruses, as I call them. We need peace in our hearts. We need peace in our homes. We need peace in our villages. We need peace in our families, because the domestic violence and the killing of each other, the destructive manner in which homelessness and refugees and displaced peoples, it's not what caused the UN. It was bombs, and you remember exactly what caused the UN. It is not those big bomb blasts anymore. It is the virus of violence that is in our homes and our communities and our villages. Now, the climate crisis is still persists, and there is a race to win it. Now, nowhere is immune from the devastating consequences of climate change. And climate is what I would call the defining crisis of our time. And it is happening even more quietly than we fear. And it's going quickly. But we are far from powerless. What we have to do in the face of this global threat is what we're doing today, what these disciples here are setting out to do. We're setting out to reach the people. I noticed that in the videos that were produced, the lots of stars and eminent people, beautiful faces and popular, it came out to me as infotainment, you know, like you giving information for entertainment. And so we have to be careful that the voiceless people do have voice, you know, but they don't get the stage. They don't have the stage. So we bring stars to talk for them as though they can speak. So we need to hear from them. We need to feel the pulse of he who feels it knows it best. Now let us talk about the shift in demographics. Remember, the world is changing. In spite of all that, there's a restoration. And the world population is expected to increase, did you know, by 2 billion. Now we are about 7.7 billion. It's going to go to 9.7 billion. But where will it happen? By 2050, are you aware that before reaching a peak of nearly 11 billion, by the end of this century, Now, fertility rates continue to decline. Let's think about that. What is happening? In spite of the spurt of growth that's going to come by the end of the century, then we have a projection of fertility rates going down. During this period, however, the global population is projected to become more urban. That is, the cities are going to be filled. And remember what? Children below 5 will outnumber all persons over age 65. So we need to get the children on board now. You know, I've been captivated by the fact that children today are adults of tomorrow and not the future. You see, children are the future. No, children are the guarantors of tomorrow. And so they are now. How do we get them involved? I want to, please excuse me, but I have put in the record this Get on Board, Children of the World. And the UN has taken notice of it. It is encapsulating the SDGs and identifying how we need intergenerational engagement to ensure that we pass it on. In this relay of generation moving from one era to the other, we need a stage of making sure that we pass on the vision that we have created. We meaning those who stand now as adults to those who will stand as adults in 2030. So get on board, Children of the World, take a look at it. Now, I don't want to continue to, because this is not about what you don't know. Half of the global population growth by 2050 is expected to come from 9 countries. And it is no surprise that Africa is the cradle where population rise would be stunning. The 9 countries, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Egypt, Indonesia, these are going to be the center of the population. Now, the population in sub-Saharan Africa is likely to double, while the population in Europe will decrease, Now, so health issues come as a major significance here. Good health is a fundamental human right and a pillar of economic sustainability. Yet too many people across the world is excluded. Now, so while significant strides have been made, such as increasing life expectancy, progress has been unjustly uneven. So, health, and remember the SDGs speaks about that so plainly, so clearly. Now, women and girls, the equality between men and women was the core tenet that was enshrined in the UN Charter in 1945. Yet 75 years later today, women and girls live in a world of widespread gender inequality. Now, turning this around is a priority. The UN recognized clearly that the UN in 2020, which also marks the 25th anniversary of Beijing Declaration and the platform of action, as most women and men, I hope, recalls. Now, the 20th anniversary of this declaration requires that attention is given. And that's where the action, the call for action is being made and should be heard. Now, in 2030 agenda, it is very clear. Gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls is a global, it's a goal for sustainable development. It cannot happen without. Sustainable development will not happen if we do not have all on board. So the world has a decade left to turn this promise into action. And important progress has been made for women and girls in the past 10 years, but change has been uneven. The Secretary General is warning, he has warned and he continues to warn. Change is coming at a pace that is too slow for women and girls whose lives depend on change. Over the next 10 years, the goals of the global community must act with urgency, he said. Now, thus bringing the mission of the ICC on board more prominently to join this global community in the commemoration of 75 years of what I would call efforts by the United Nations, having the ICC commit to the vision of His Eminence, the Right Honorable Phillip, and I say the disciple. And if we all become disciples, active disciples, as we are called to become, the International Consultancy Cabinet, in assessing the future, has been long overdue. And so today, I am very pleased to join in the call for action, in the call to renew our commitment to standing up. And the presentation by Dr. Ada was very informative. It pointed to the specific areas of action that we need to attend to. And let us, again, recognize that we don't preach to converts. And among you here today, you're here because you're committed. How do you and I get our messages out there? And I'm pleased to be one who would like to join in the effort to take the message to the villages. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. It'd always be a pleasure to listening to you, I must say. That's for me like about third time that I'm actually hearing you live. That's amazing honor. And of course, you are giving us a great honor, great encouragement, and even though great strength to move ahead, that you actually point out the major aspect all those SDGs are actually focusing on the youth development and youth empowerment. And that is the reason all 17 goals, if you see, most of that, like 6 goals are actually focusing into about the youth empowerment and youth development. And also talk about in Agenda 2030, paragraph 53 is about the future generation, giving the responsibility to the future generation. Thank you so much, His Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward to our another speaker for this amazing session, Mr. Bill Graham. He is actually the Vice Chair to the NGO Committee for Education, Learning and Literacy, and UN representative also, the Young Global Leadership Foundation and Italian Diplomatic Academy. Mr. Bill will be focusing into the Reaffirm commitment to sustainable development goal in the line with the work of the UN General Assembly NGO and civil society participation. Without further delay, Mr. Bill, the floor is all yours now.
Thank you very much. Well, you said it all. It's who I am and what I'm going to speak about. So I guess that's almost it. However, I'll say a few words. about when we talk here about what the UN General Assembly, the NGOs, civil society, how are these working together? How should they be working together? Especially in light of UN 75, which the Secretary General has said, and as previous speakers have noted, is more right now about reconfirming our commitment to the ideals of the United Nations, of nations coming together and working together to solve the major problems of the world. And the concern that people are losing faith in the ability of international cooperation and international institutions to achieve the goals that we hold up there. And that's resulting in more and more people, and especially more and more governments and more politicians who are looking for opportunities to bring the focus on themselves and away from others and cooperation, to weaken those bonds to international cooperation. So what's really happening here? The goal the Secretary General has called for here is we've got to get the people of the world to reevaluate and better understand what are the urgent problems that we're facing as a global community, and what's the value, and why do we need to work together to address these global problems. And this is why they've called for a dialogue among as many people on this planet as they can bring together. We're going to hear a little bit more about that in another session later on this afternoon, so I won't go into that in much depth, other than to say, we've heard we're 7.5 billion people on this planet. We're heading towards 11 billion people. The youth are really, whether they're defining it actively or they're defining it just passively by existing, they are the force that is going to play a major role in shaping whatever future this planet might have. And so as these dialogues take place, and I noticed just yesterday that the survey for UN 75 has achieved a little bit more than 1 million participants so far, which sounds like a big number, but in light of 7.5 billion, it is somewhere a couple of zeros behind the decimal point. So, let's step back a moment and remember, what's the UN all about? The UN is about peace in the world, but it's also about prosperity and the human community of going and as a human community being able to decide, where do we want this world to go and be in a few years? Now, all these people on the planet, they're represented by the member states. So the member states get together in the United Nations, and they, representing their peoples, hopefully, are defining, here's the goals, here's what we want to try to shoot for, and they achieve agreement for achieving those goals. Now, the problem here right now is in so many fields in the SDGs. We talk about all the achievements and things like this, and we have to go all the way back to the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, and we really see there was great progress made, especially in the first 10 years of the MDGs. But in the last 5 years of the MDGs and the first 5 years of the SDGs, a lot of that progress has slowed down. And in fact, in a number of the SDG fields, there have been knowledgeable people in those fields that have really said there's been negligible progress made in a lot of those fields. It was mentioned the importance of education here, especially in light of the young people. And Andrea Schleicher, the head of the OECD PISA program that evaluates the international progress in the field of education, just said here the end of last year that there has been no significant progress made in the past decade in the field of education. And if we take a look and see with its large population how much China has advanced, somebody else in the world has been declining. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to say it's not a question of no progress, but how much have we fallen behind. So we have to go and ask, and there's a lot of efforts underway about evaluating here, where are we, what kind of progress we're making in a lot of areas of the SDGs. But we really have to ask if we're on track. And especially here, when we look to measure that, what are the concrete, comprehensive plans for actually achieving the SDGs? Or do we just go and say, there's goals out there now, please everybody go and let's achieve those goals. That's sort of like the church is saying, okay, everybody go home now and follow the golden rule. And if all that worked, we wouldn't need any police departments or any correctional institutes and so forth. So we can't just rely on appeals for people and states to do what's needed. Somewheres there needs to be some goals. And the question is, who has these goals? So we have our three parties, the UN, represented by the General Assembly, and we have our NGOs and civil society here. Now, the UN, they did the first part here. They got the member states to agree. Here's a set of goals, 17 goals, 168 or so targets that we want to achieve by 2030. The member states are the ones that are responsible for doing that. The UN doesn't say, okay, we now accept the responsibility. We, the UN, will drive the achievement of that goal. They can drive it by the bully pulpit and going out and saying, let's do this. And they can have influence through their agencies. But by and large, it is not the role of the UN to do. It's the role of the UN to agree, and which they've done. So now we get to our NGOs and civil society, which are the partners of organizations like the UN and the member states, who can contribute to helping achieve those goals. And so their goal is to partner with that. So how well are we doing that? Well, there's a structure here for a lot of our NGOs. There's 10 million NGOs in the world, but there's a structure here within the UN to have umbrella organizations, committees, such as my own committee that I'm the vice chair of on education. But the question is here, what are they doing? What are these partner umbrella organizations to the UN doing? Do they have goals or have they established goals that are in alignment with the goals of the corresponding committees and so forth at the UN? So if that were the case here within education, we could say, okay, our goals here are to make sure every child's in school, make sure every child is achieving the minimal foundation knowledge by a certain age or roughly, and ensuring that everybody leaves school with the proper attitude and knowledge to be able to build upon to continue their lives. But do we have those kind of goals? Our committees, we meet periodically. Do we go and talk about the measure and how much progress have our family of NGOs and civil society within our particular field? Are we talking about what progress have we made? Are we on track? What do we need to change if we're not on track? Are we doing that? Or do we go and we listen to some nice little presentation by somebody about some place somebody is doing something, and then we all stand, well, before COVID, would stand around and say hi to everybody again. And then we go away and say, hey, see you next month. Do our committees add value? Do these umbrella organizations add value? And if they're not adding value, if they're not contributing to their member organizations being able to be valuable partners, effective partners to the corresponding departments in the UN and committees, and they're not adding value to what their members are doing, what's their purpose? So I think here it's not enough to be able to say, well, all the NGOs, everybody's doing things. There are hundreds of thousands, there are millions of projects going on in this world that all relate back in one way or another to one or another SDG. In fact, in Rotary, we've got 65,000 clubs, if we count our youth clubs around the world. But, and each of them is doing 3 or 4 major projects there. So we can look at that alone and say, you know, we've got more than 250,000 significant projects in the world just within Rotary. Lions has similar, and there's a dozen other organizations out there doing things. And keep in mind what I said, there's 10 million NGOs in some way, shape, or form. But what's happening with the aggregate needle? We have to remember it's not about what we do, it's about what we achieve. And if we're not achieving, does it really make a difference? If we go and we rebuild homes for people in a floodplain without considering it's going to get washed away again next year because we didn't think big enough when we were taking those actions. So we need to go and be, as we need bridges between our NGOs and our civil society and the corresponding departments within the UN to make sure that somebody is going and making sure that that the contributions of the NGOs and civil society are in line with what the UN, the member states collectively have set up as the goals that where we want to get there. So I think it starts a little bit with expectations. Is the UN, and I'll step back a step because I've heard, I haven't been involved with the UN that long, maybe 3-4 years, but I hear rumblings that the UN has started to question, are the NGOs really delivering? Is this where we should put our faith that they're really going to significantly help? Or do they see the NGOs and civil society as just people that say, banging on the door and say, I want a seat, I want a seat? Do they see the NGOs as just looking at an opportunity to boost their image by saying, I'm a consultative partner to the UN? So the UN here can play a significant role by saying, these are the expectations, especially to the umbrella organizations. To say, we've established, we have these goals in the form of the SDGs. Either you guys are an effective partner for helping your family of organizations contribute to achieving those goals, or we really can't afford to waste our time with you. And I think if the UN was more deliberate in setting those expectations, that would result in the family of the associations, the umbrella organizations, the committees, going out there and saying, you know what, we better be able to show the value we're adding between all of our member organizations and the UN. We've got to justify our existence. And our existence can't be because we just helped people be able to get through the door and we help people be able to meet with certain people of influence. It's really got to get down to saying here that we are doing something with our communities of members to bring about the change, bring about the achievement of the goals. We're a third of the way through the SDGs. Are we a third of the way from where we were 5 years ago towards the achievement of the SDG goals? I don't think there's a lot of areas where we can say that's true. So what have we done? What is the collection of NGOs and civil society? What have they done to get us on track to be able to deliver on that? Or do they see themselves as saying, no, we'll advise the UN, we'll tell the UN what they should be doing? Somewhere here, we've got to go and make sure that these umbrella organizations, these committees, these associations are at least setting goals that are in line with the goals of the United Nations, i.e. the SDGs, and that they measure progress. They hold themselves accountable to delivering against those goals. Now, many are going to say, well, we have no way how we're going to achieve those goals. Well, I think the thing about it is you don't need to know how you're going to do it to set goals. If we knew how to do everything, they'd be just getting done. But what we have to remember here, if we don't aim for it, we're not likely to achieve it. So it starts off, set the goals, and then let's worry to figure out and bring our people together and our member organizations to say, okay, now the goal's there. It is what it is. How do we get there? And we have to remember here what Michelangelo said. The problem for most people is not that they set goals too high and fail, but they set their goals too low and succeed. So again, think the only thing that's truly impossible is what we don't achieve, what we don't attempt. So let's go out there, and my challenge is to the UN. Set the expectations for the parties you partner with, that they deliver something effectively. And to the associations and the committees out there, set goals that are in line with the SDGs, and do something with your community to make sure that you're working towards those goals. And organize your members along those lines. In other words, dare to be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was indeed a mouthful. That was a lot of information that is greatly needed. And thank you very much for your work that you have been doing, and for enlightening us on in these areas, so that we can be able to know our areas in which we need to look at. Thank you very much, Ambassador William Graham, for giving us this information.
Not an ambassador yet, though, but thank you.
Hey, I'll tell you this much. Over at ICC, we call those things which be not. So just watch out. It's coming. It's coming in due time. It's coming. Listen, everyone here is ambassadors. That's one thing we see. We're all ambassadors because we're all messengers. We're all carrying out a mandate. And thank you very much for the mandate that you've carried out, and thank you very much for reminding us of that mandate. At this time, I will hand over to my co-host, Ambassador Fawad, who will introduce the next speaker.
Cheers, buddy. Yes, indeed. That's you have made it very clearly. Of course, we all are ambassadors. Now, it could be like ambassador for any entity, or you can say the ambassador of peace, that we are actually ambassadoring, and of course, giving opportunities to people, to everyone, of course. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Graham. That's amazing to hear with you. Okay, so let's move on to another speaker. Will be Judy Kay. She's an advisor, United Nations member states of mental health and well-being. She'll be focusing into confronting COVID-19 through effective joint action. Without further delay, Dr. Kay, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
A pleasure to be with you indeed, and to be part of this wonderful event and all the work that is being done in terms of the moving forward of the SDG agenda, and also for achievement of all of those on behalf of all the group here and all the people who are listening. I hope that we can be seeing my PowerPoint now. looking towards the future that we want and confronting COVID-19 through effective joint action as being my title. I am going to address, in fact, the issues of multilateralism and multi-stakeholderism and the importance of bringing everyone to the table, including in civil society that we have heard the DPR of Nigeria mentioned. I'm so glad that he has mentioned that. And that we really focus on all of the SDGs as a nexus, as interlinked together. And I'm so appreciative of the work that you're doing on behalf of ICC and Dr. Phillip Phinn leading this group, and of course Dr. Ada, who not only is part of the ICC but also in all her work towards education. So I think we all need to commit to get a copy of Get on Board, Ambassador Antoine's book, because it's really showing us that the youth today are the ones who are going to carry forward all the work that so many of us have been doing in the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, then the creation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and now with 10 years to go, it is going to be in their hands to bring this forward in the future. I've been very proud to be part of the civil society negotiation for the SDGs, and in participating and watching the governments make all those agreements in 2015, and advocating on behalf of mental health and well-being successfully with the Ambassador of Palau, and getting that into the agenda and hopefully seeing that forward, which I will present a little bit about in terms of my role as a psychologist. So joint action means we work together. That is the theme of UN 75, as you see right there, the symbol of shaping our future together. In fact, we are at a moment now, I think, of the phoenix rising from the ashes of COVID-19, as you see in the photo on the right there, that this is a terrible disaster, but that in fact, it has given us an opportunity for the way forward and the future we want, which are both terms used at the UN, starting from the negotiations of the SDGs, and seeing, in fact, in those photos, all of us working together towards the future we want. In psychological terms, we call this a phrase, the post-traumatic growth, the silver lining, as the phrase we know. We know so much about post-traumatic stress, but this is the outcome also of post-traumatic growth. And in the research that I have done on this PTG from COVID-19, relating to many of the SDGs, the answers that people have said when I ask, what have you gained from this? What has been a silver lining of this terrible disaster of the pandemic that has affected everyone? And the answers have been, we're in this together. I realize that there's a need for unity and cooperation and togetherness. We need to take care of the planet, one of those 5 Ps that Ada talked about, the climate change and environment, and we all suffer in the same way, and therefore we need to heal in the same way. COVID-19 has led us to the future that we want by more inclusion of civil society and others as multi-stakeholders, as the phrase that's used at the UN, with a seat at the table. And here you see all the multi-stakeholders: industry, private sector, civil society that the DPR of Nigeria mentioned, international organizations and NGOs, UN agencies like WHO and UNDP and UN Women and UNICEF and all the others, and also academia that I am a part of as being a professor of psychology at Columbia University Teachers College, besides government on the national level and the international level at the UN of member states. So COVID-19 has led to UN going online, we all know, because here we are, but virtual meetings have led to tremendous opportunities for more access for civil society. Just the other day, the Women of the Diaspora meeting that happened, that was many of the leaders of UNFPA and others, and there were opportunities for many people in a general audience to tune in and be part of the chat and the conversation that has never happened before, besides the first vice president of Costa Rica. So government also, who would have the opportunity to go physically to the UN, but we can go online for these now and make it available. We've had opportunities for webinar series. Ada has done many of these, and bless you for that. We've done some with the United African Congress about COVID-19 in Africa, and brought multi-stakeholders together to stop the spread and the panic and racism and the economic issues and food insecurities, having the ambassador of Sierra Leone to the United States and the ambassador of Ethiopia to the UN and UN agencies, UNAIDS and UNHCR and civil society and the private sector of Phillips and media. And of course, my own students. This has evolved into the project that you see on the right. And thank you, Ambassador Antoine, for talking about population and that Africa will have so much growth in population. So, and thank you for raising the issue of health, because this is the project that we're doing, Africa Rise Healthier and Stronger, to build the health infrastructure as a result of COVID-19. This has been the impetus for that. Academia has gone online, and there have been opportunities for students to access the UN global goals. And my students have done these amazing webinars with the former ambassador of Iraq, who was one of the founders of the happiness campaign at the UN and the International Day of Happiness, and Nepal, the DPR of Nepal being on, the access of students to the DPR of Nepal, talking about prosperous Nepal and happy Nepal, as you see on the right, and resilience and coping from COVID-19. In UN terms, COVID-19 has been pointed out by government officials as an entry point, the way forward, the future we want, leading to increased focus on multilateralism, as you see here, and that's the UN ambassador from Hungary, Katalin Bogier, who speaks about so many issues about peace and also about multilateralism. Having my students have an opportunity to be part of that. So I'm going to play you a video, very short video now, of the Secretary General speaking about multilateralism, the opportunities of COVID-19, and the voice of civil society and youth and the disadvantaged, and also a short clip of the new President of the General Assembly from Turkey talking also about these issues. So a very short video about that.
We require unity and solidarity. We have seen such a widespread and damaging spread of the pandemic in large part because our multilateral system is not strong enough. Countries have adopted different strategies instead of a coherent international-led response. There is a real risk of a second wave. And that is why we must insist that no country is safe and healthy until all countries are safe and healthy. And for that, we need a strong, coordinated and coherent multilateral response based on solidarity. The COVID is a threat, is a problem, but it is also an opportunity. Because as we have to change, we can change in the right direction. As we are mobilizing massive resources to rebuild, we can rebuild in the right direction. And our blueprint must be the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. And with the voices of young people, the activism of civil society, the power of innovation and the agility of business, we have the makings of a global movement for good.
We need to hear from the people we serve. I see this hall as the Parliament of Humanity, and I intend to use this platform to amplify the voices of the most vulnerable people in the world. Here in the Chief Deliberative Policy Making and Representative Organ, we must consider the concerns of all people in need or under oppression. I will work with member states to ensure they have a voice.
This is wonderful to know that the voice of civil society is being heard. And civil society is also addressing multilateralism, as we did at Psychology Day recently in this webinar about the importance of all voices together. COVID-19 has also been an entry point for the way forward that has led to an escalation of this achievement of the multilateral and multi-stakeholder agreements that have been due to COVID-19. Of course, for the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development, as was pointed out by Ambassador Antoine, and as the former deputy president of the UN GA Assembly, he would certainly know a lot about that. And the importance of the achievement of universal health coverage, the political declaration for that, and the Convention on the Rights for Persons of Disability. So COVID-19 as an opportunity, as the UN Secretary General said, has allowed us to really push forward on these important agreements. Another example of the way forward that has also been spurred by this terrible tragedy of COVID-19 is a focus on the nexus or the interlinkage of the SDGs through a project to reach those furthest behind that is part of the Global Council on Health of the United Arab Emirates initiative of the SDGs in action. This is a huge initiative of all the different councils they've put together of the individual SDGs, of which I'm proud to be the head of the one on SDG 3 on global health and well-being, having been really influential in getting the word well-being into that particular SDG. The project is Health in Your Hands, which is a way of reaching those furthest behind with access to affordable health care. And in collaboration with the finance cluster, because what we definitely need is funding. This is a word that hasn't been mentioned yet, but that is crucial in order to achieve the goals of ICC and others. COVID-19 has been an entry point for the way forward as a focus on mental health, thanks to the Secretary General. This is a new world that he has written a policy and distributed a policy about the support of mental health due to COVID-19. And he knows a great deal about that issue, having people in his family who are experts in mental health and psychology and psychiatry, as Ambassador Antoine also has, with his son being a very esteemed person, a psychiatrist in the academic world. The Secretary General has made many statements about psychologically informed language, about taking simple steps to stay healthy, being informed and being kind and supporting one another. The emphasis has been reinforced about leaving no one behind with so many messages and statements at the United Nations and member states addressing mental health and COVID-19, as you see here with the group of friends of mental health and well-being made up of member states. Many DPRs, this has been, actually we founded it, I co-founded this with Ambassador Otto when we were negotiating about including mental health and well-being into the SDGs. It's now being headed by Canada, Bahrain, Belgium, and Ecuador. You could see then the dimensions of the different regions of the world that's so much a part of the UN who have come together to support mental health in reaction to COVID-19. There are also all the UN agencies have come together on this issue with support for mental health, as you see here with the Secretary General's envoy on youth and WHO and UNICEF, all spurred on by this terrible tragedy that has led to these new opportunities. The major bottom line point here is the importance of community cohesion from a psychological point of view, from a social point of view, from SDG 10 even, about strong communities. As a psychologist, I feel very, very strongly about this point that psychological research shows that connection with others, which has been proven by so much research, is fundamental to recovering from any disaster and any crisis, including COVID-19, and that this is important so much on the individual level of the community. And we must therefore, as I said a long time ago, unfortunately it's catching on, we have to stop using the word social distancing because social inclusion is what we want. So please replace it with the word physical distancing instead, which is what it's really about. So with all of that in mind, as a final point, here are some of my suggestions for the strategic plan, since that's so much a part of what today and the ICC is about. And that I've discussed with Ada and with Bill as well. Thank you, Bill. That there needs to be a focus on global. This is a word that was started in 1915 by a Scottish conservationist and even by a Japanese marketing strategist, but needs to come back strongly. Global, meaning, as you see in the symbol there, global, but also focusing on the local situation and the real people, building on the commitments to the SDGs, as Ada was just so brilliantly laid out, the multilateralism and the multi-stakeholders who contribute to that. Rebuilding trust, which is so critical. as a new project that I've been doing in the Democratic Republic of the Congo now, as the work that I did so much during Ebola. Trust in government is so important. Trust in neighbors, trust in communities, and trust in each other is really critical. A focus on this nexus and the intersection of the SDGs, like in the SDGs in action from the UAE initiative that I mentioned. Another suggestion for the strategy going forward, involving youth and academia. We do talk about youth a lot, but so much about academia. And please, as a psychologist, also including the psychological perspective, because mindset, and as the Secretary General said, kindness being so important in the way forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Judy Korsinski. Thank you very much for giving us that, that call to action in regards to moving forward. Thank you very much. We will definitely take those into consideration and see the areas in which we can be able to apply them and have them go into action with immediate effect. Thank you very much for that. Here now we're going to be moving into a panel session, which the chairman, Bill Graham, will be directed. So again, he is representative at the UN, Young Global Leadership Foundation, Italian Diplomatic Academy, president of the Rotary Dare to the Great E Club, D7475. His panelists includes Naomi Ekpoki, founder and CEO of Cinema's Love Foundation, 2020 UN champion of disarmament. Omar Monotoya, that's the Red Cross Mexico volunteer, World Economic Forum, global shaper, global youth leader. We have Miriam Nassif, who is the International Youth Federation representative and president of the Rotaract Youth Club in Lebanon. And we have Jerica Whitlock, who is the American businesswoman who introduced the SDG World Awards and Enedab Mandela's 100 Mandela's initiatives to the UN. So they will be focusing on the UN 75, an opportunity to focus the world's masses on achieving Vision 2030, the future we want and the future we could have if all the SDGs were achieved in all parts of the world for people. So at this time, I will now hand you over to the chair, Bill Graham, as he takes over from here now to present us with the panel session. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, you've covered a lot of the points here. The key thing here is this is about we cannot achieve the masses. We talk about inclusion, we talk about engagement, but we have to realize that a great many problems in the world have to do with human behavior. Not necessarily intentional human behavior, but if you're born in Eastern DR Congo, you have totally different expectations and your behavior patterns are very different than somebody who's born in the wealthy part of London. So we have to realize we need to get all people on this planet engaged, or at least a majority who are actively engaged in bringing about that future we want. So we're going to talk a little bit about the need for that and how we might achieve that. This is a panel discussion. You've already introduced my panelists. I'm going to do it a little bit again in just a second here, because we pre-recorded this session. Our panelists come from 4 different continents. And the problem we're always concerned about when we try to do this live is we run into connectivity problems. We have time zone problems. So we pre-recorded this. So if you can give me permission to share my screen, and I will. Chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the United Nations, and the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global E-Club. I'm also a representative to the UN, for the Italian Diplomatic Academy, and the Young Global Leadership Foundation. It's my honor to moderate this session on UN 75, an opportunity to focus the masses on achieving Vision 2030, the future we want and the future we could have if all the SDGs were achieved in all parts of the world for all people. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panel for today. Mariam Nassif from Beirut, Lebanon. Mariam has participated in leadership and organizational roles in several large-scale global conferences, including here at the United Nations, involving thousands of exceptional youth from around the world. Naomi Ekpoki from Abuja, Nigeria. Naomi is the founder and CEO of Cinema Love Foundation and a UN 2020 champion of disarmament. Omer Montoya from Guadalajara, Mexico. Omer has been a multi-year Red Cross Mexico volunteer and a World Economic Forum Global Shaper youth leader. And Jerica Whitlock from New York, USA. Jerica is an American businesswoman who introduced the SDG World Awards and Nadava Mandela's 100 Mandelas at the United Nations. Thank you all for participating today. Today's event is focused on UN 75. Yes, it commemorates the 75th anniversary of the UN, but it's more than that. Already in 2019, looking forward to 2020, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, Secretary General was talking about how the world is facing more global problems today than at almost any time in history, some of which are potentially existential: climate change, disruptive science and technology, pandemics, growing inequality, and more countries experiencing conflict today than at any point in the last 30 years. At a time where there are so many global problems that can only be solved through international cooperation and collaboration, we are seeing more and more people losing faith in international institutions like the UN. The Secretary General says multilateralism is under fire precisely when we need it most. As a result, he sees UN 75 is not a time for celebrating. Rather, we must leverage the 75th anniversary of the UN to get people to reevaluate and recognize the need for and the value of multilateral efforts and international institutions to address some of the major problems the world is facing. So what's the UN's strategy for accomplishing that goal? The UN seeks to engage as many people as possible in dialogue regarding the future we want and the problems facing the world. This initiative is called the Join the Conversation campaign. There's a massive publicity campaign calling for people all over the world to engage in dialogue. The plans initially were to promote a lot of face-to-face town hall-like meetings for those dialogues. Obviously, because of COVID, most of the discussions are now taking place online or by a big push to have people participate in an online survey. So how is that coming along? How likely are we to achieve the Secretary General's goals? Comments, anyone?
So far, for example, the Join the Conversation campaign has resulted in a little bit over 1 million people, and that's less than one person for every 7,000 participating and taking a few minutes to complete a relatively broad survey. That means 6,999 people out of 7,000 probably have no knowledge of this initiative and have not given any thought to what is needed or desired.
Plus, an even smaller number of people is spending a few hours one time in a discussion round about the future they want.
In addition, the Secretary General said he was particularly interested in engaging those who are not already fans of the international cooperation and the UN in conversation. But the survey shows that almost all of the participants think it is essential that countries work together. That does not look like the broad cross-section of skeptics he was seeking to dialogue with.
Honestly, I have doubts this is going to have that big of an impact on the attitude and opinions of a significant share of 7.5 billion people in the world.
Why are we not achieving the goals?
Michelangelo said, the problem for most people is not that they set goals too high and fail, but that they set goals too low and succeed.
Well, I think the UN 75 goals are not high enough. Like, where are the goals aimed at reaching millions of people?
Where are the goals that get people engaged for extended periods of weeks and months?
And where are the goals aimed at getting tens or even hundreds of millions of people to see themselves as global citizen heroes?
Where are the goals that aim to get the media and masses talking about the UN, international corporation, the problems that face the world, the SDGs, etc., almost every other day?
It would seem that these are the kind of goals it would take to have any significant impact on the attitude and opinions of the general public in countries around the world.
We need to set UN 75 goals based on what's needed and not what we think we can do.
What kind of goals would it take then for a goal to be able to change the mindset of a significant share of the world population?
Well, as we said before, we need to set goals based on what is needed and not just what we think we can do.
Well, the United Nations Secretary General said that most people are turning their backs on international corporations and institutions at a time where we need them even more, and we need to work together even more.
And that we need to revitalize public recognition of the need for and value of multilateralism to combat the many, some existential problems facing us.
A meaningful change in public opinion requires a significant share of the entire world population to share the desired opinion regarding not only international cooperation or multilateralism and institutions, but also a willingness to support the achievement of our shared goals, the SDGs.
This will require a deeper understanding of the problems facing the world and the magnitude of potential dangers they represent than can be accomplished in a questionnaire completed in minutes or even a discussion of a few hours.
What kind of public engagement are you thinking of to bring that deeper understanding about?
Well, we need to find ways that keep these ideas about the future we want, the world's major problems, and the need for multilateralism in the forefront of people's minds for at least a few months.
And what do you mean by a significant share of the entire global population?
I don't think a few million spending a few minutes to a few hours will bring about the desired mindset.
Yeah, I think we need to aim to have at least a few 100 million actively engaged in activity that deepen understanding for the problems that the world is facing, the need for cooperation and collaboration to effectively address these problems, but also the world we could have if we successfully address all of these problems.
Let me summarize. You're saying you want to get hundreds of millions of people actively engaged in some kind of activities and more than 1 billion people following news of those activities to bring about a greater appreciation for the need for global cooperation to take on the serious problems facing the world. You do realize, don't you, that just stating such an objective is enough for many people to categorize you as totally crazy?
Shortly after inspiring a nation by saying the US would put a man on the moon in 10 years, US President John F. Kennedy said, "We don't yet know how we are going to do it, but we are going to do it anyway."
I remember former Liberian president and Nobel Peace Prize winner Ellen Johnson Sirleaf said, "Your dreams should always exceed your current capacity to achieve them."
And not to mention that Steve Jobs said, those who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones who do.
That's what we are.
As we've said, the only thing that is truly impossible is that which is not attempted. And your chance of hitting what you don't even aim at are zero.
The problem is that when most people hear goals they think are impossible, they don't even make an attempt to think about how they might be able to achieve them.
What will happen if we can get a few people of influence to stop for a moment and we can show them a way that they believe these goals are achievable? What happens when people suddenly see a way to achieve something they feel is highly desirable that they have previously thought was impossible? We believe many will jump on the chance to be a part of making it happen.
So you believe you see a believable path by which you can get hundreds of millions of people actively engaged in activities that would make them more likely to appreciate the severity of the challenges the world is facing and the value of international cooperation and institutions and effectively taking on these challenges. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People will not act unless they can see a desirable result, and they'll still not act unless they can see a path that they believe can achieve that goal. Do you believe you have a path that people will see as believable for mobilizing such great numbers of people?
For sure.
Yes.
Now you have everyone curious. Tell us how.
The purpose of this section. Imagine what it would mean for the mindset of the world and for having a chance to achieve the SDGs, hundreds of millions, were to be actively engaged in pumping up the desire for a better world and actively engaged in some activities to dramatically better the world.
Seeing our programs of initiatives as a viable path that could result in getting hundreds of millions of people to act in a way that both brings about a great good in the world, but also shapes their attitudes about wanting to do significant good and their confidence in being able to have massive impact on the world.
Well, thinking this is totally doable. Let's do it.
So first of all, how do we imagine we might get hundreds of million people engaged in doing anything, let alone something that for an extended period has to do with the UN or SDGs or building a better world while building a positive mindset about bettering the world in tens of hundreds of millions of participants?
We need something that is so simple and simple to understand that there is no reason anyone would not participate. We need something that's considered such a positive thing that the natural inclination of most people would be to participate. Has to be easy to publicize and promote. It could even be considered patriotic to one's country or community. And finally, creates positive publicity opportunities for all those who promote it. But even more so, this idea was proposed by a group of 9 and 10-year-olds.
And guess what? A readathon.
A readathon is possible in its own right. I mean, who is against improving reading skills?
A readathon creates opportunities to raise money to be able to serve a great cause.
A readathon is very easy for people to grasp the concept.
A readathon takes almost no preparation or lead time to implement.
A readathon creates opportunities for many to become involved in promoting and supporting the readathon.
A world figure of influence would issue a global appeal for young students around the world to show their solidarity with something by reading as many hours as they can during a given month.
This will be followed by a massive publicity campaign at a levels from global to every local community to maximize participation by primary and lower secondary schools.
And then a parallel campaign would encourage pledges of donations for every hour read by students during the readathon to be used for an exceptionally good cause that the children themselves can identify with. For example, reducing the number of children in the world who are not attending school due to hunger or extreme poverty. This should serve as a significant incentive to schools and students to participate.
It will be announced that at the end of the readathon, participating students would be declared to be global citizen heroes and receive certificates of heroism in a big local heroes award ceremony organized by local service clubs and similar organizations.
Teachers and school administrators can easily register their classes to participate through a computer or a smartphone.
Additional aspects will be announced that will elevate the hero status of participating students and keep it going over an extended period.
Now, let's just imagine if the Secretary General were to make a big deal, press or media appeal that all schools and children commemorate the 75th anniversary of the UN, or the end of COVID lockdowns, World Literacy Month, Nelson Mandela's birthday, or any internationally recognized event or day.
Let's imagine further that many national leaders, the international and national media, the ministers of education were to echo that appeal and add to it their personal request that the young people of their country demonstrate to the world what great readers they are. In other words, make it a matter of national pride.
Imagine that local Rotary, Lions, and other organizations make it their mission to echo these appeals in every community and in every school across the world. And up the stakes by announcing community rep rallies, encouraging the students in their communities to read like crazy during the readathon, and by announcing that after the readathon there would be an awards ceremony in every community to honor the students and the schools who participate and make special awards to their schools that achieved exceptional average numbers of hours read per student for their class, school, etc. And there would be national award events for schools and even entire cities that had highest average number hours read per student.
Imagine that all kinds of celebrities, businesses, local media, libraries, bookstores, including TV, publicly promoted participation, citing the importance to local pride, and maybe even announce some additional awards or prizes.
Imagine then that the teachers and school administrators associations and other stakeholders inform their members that they were partners in this initiative and encourage all their members to get fully behind the readathon.
What kind of participation rates do you think that might result in?
Now imagine the impact if Bill Gates, Jack Ma, Mark Zuckerberg, or some other big name philanthropists were to come out and announce that they or a coalition of philanthropies would pledge an amount for every hour read for the first billion hours read. Remember, they don't pay anything unless the hours are read, or even $100 million. The idea is an announcement that would get all the media reporting it and everyone talking about it. It would be enough if they just announced the establishment of a pledge fund with the goal of getting people pledges from major philanthropies, corporations, wealthy individuals, etc., of $1 billion.
Then imagine that every few days for the next several weeks, different organizations, individuals, and other parties held press events announcing that they were pledging some significant amount to the Pledge Foundation. This would result in the media reporting daily about the growth of the fund and reminding people about the readathon.
Imagine there were daily interviews with teachers and students describing what they thought about the idea of the readathon and the opportunity to help less fortunate children.
Imagine the media reporting about how so many poor children who never had anything themselves and were never able to think of themselves as a giver suddenly had something of value. Each hour they read was worth something.
Imagine that in addition to those making direct global pledges to donate something for every hour read, local businesses were making additional pledges to the schools in their communities or to a class or to sponsor an individual student. Statewide businesses may even pledge a donation for every hour read in their state.
Imagine local campaigns where students are reaching out to people in their communities to make small pledges to their class, as small as even only 1 penny for each hour read by the students in their class. And imagine this became a widely publicized competition. So which class has the highest pledge amount per hour read in their class or school?
Imagine communities, perhaps organized by Rotary or Lions, are organizing pledge events or declaring some day to be Pledge Day, where everyone is canvassed and encouraged to make a small pledge to some class.
Imagine pledge days or events that are not about getting donation pledges, but about getting students to sign pledges that they would participate in the readathon or pledge how many hours they intended to read each day during the month.
And imagine there is even a global pledge day for both students to pledge how many hours they intended to read and for donors to pledge how much they would donate per hour read by the group they are sponsoring, a school, a class, a city, a state. Now, can you imagine all of this creating a compelling buzz that maximizes participation and maximizes the numbers of hours each student reads? Finally, imagine that in each classroom, every morning, they begin the day by reviewing how many hours the class has read so far and how many lives they will be changing due to the hours that they have read thus far, and perhaps setting goals for themselves to increase the number of hours they will read in the next days and weeks.
We began by saying we want you to be able to visualize.
Mobilizing a great number of young people to participate in an extended event that will leave them with a global citizen hero mindset.
And get people talking about such an initiative and the organizations promoting or sponsoring the initiative. For example, the UN and partners such as Rotary, etc.
Have we achieved that yet?
Can you imagine the buzz that would exist if all of the above-mentioned publicity and incentive measures were implemented?
Can you visualize organizations, celebrities wanting to be viewed as associated with such an initiative?
And can you imagine how easy it would be to simply keep track and report how many hours a class within a school read over a month's time?
We now have a lot of excitement about what primary and lower secondary students were able to do, and many highly desirous to continue that excitement. Now is the time for the future we want, primary school competition. Imagine primary school classes around the globe discussing the future they want, to include better understanding what various parts of the world are like today, what major problems affect various parts of the world, and the value to the world and their local communities if all the SDGs were achieved in their area.
Imagine those classes then prepare a 3 to 5 minute presentation of the future they want, that they then present in an assembly to other classes of their school. And after all of the classes have presented, all the students will vote for the presentation that will represent their school in its local competition.
Imagine tens of millions of people viewing dozens of future we want presentations of young people and voting for their favorites, with each presentation causing them to think again about what is important for their future and the future of their children.
Imagine the pride among parents and school officials if their candidate wins at a couple of levels. Why will the schools participate?
The prestigious opportunity for the school to have their students appearing in a global competition. Presentations could be altered between competition rounds so that more students from the school can play a role in the competition, beyond just the original winning class. This would give more students a stake in the outcome.
Corporations and other businesses would be encouraged to offer additional interim prizes to supplement those offered by the competition. In other words, a local business may support the City X prize and a national corporation might sponsor the country XYZ prize.
There could be additional prestige prizes at the various levels as well. For example, the winning team meeting with the mayor or the prime minister or minister of education, etc.
This is how it could work. After preparing their presentations and presenting at a school assembly to select the presentation that would represent their school, the winning presentation would then take recommendation for changes from all the students in their school and have the option of changing their presentation to expand the stakeholder base.
And then that presentation would then be recorded and submitted to the local level competition. There, they would be integrated into a show format and made available to the local public to listen to the presentation and to vote for their favorite.
The winner at the local level would go on the regional level, then state, national, continental, and finally world levels.
There are many other aspects for this initiative. For example, don't forget that beyond the schools and students involved, it will include millions of other people watching and voting for the presentations they like the best. With each additional presentation they watch, they are getting additional perspectives to the world that could be there for themselves and their children.
That alone will be a tremendously valuable result of this initiative.
Students will be encouraged to lobby their parents, their neighbors, and even vote for them.
As students
and others
watch more and more presentations themselves, they get broader perspective about the future they would want and the problems that need to be overcome to achieve them.
Discussion guides for the teachers and students could be made available in many languages.
In addition, there are numerous sources of materials in many languages about what life is like in different parts of the world and about the SDGs.
Now that we have some nice momentum going for thinking about the future we want, how can we up the momentum? Imagine that a song about the future we want and the problems to be overcome to get there was the most listened to song in the world.
And imagine that tens of millions of people had actually participated in making this song successful and therefore had a special identification with the song, and people were continually humming the song everywhere that they went, that it was becoming an earworm, the kind of song that you can't get out of your head.
Imagine that a great number of people who were participating in the voting will be hearing a great number of songs that are all about the future we want. By the time they're finished, many people are likely to have the future we want on their brain.
How would it attract musicians?
What if, following the massively popular readathon and Future We Want presentation competition, a number of top music producers, record labels, and top world artists were to make an announcement calling on current and would-be songwriters to participate in a global competition to come up with the songs that best portray Vision 2030, the future we want, and the problems that have to be overcome to get there.
What if the competition included TV and internet channel appearances modeled after famous TV talent shows like America's Got Talent and The Voice, and numerous publicity opportunities rather?
And finally, the idea that the winning song will be sung by the top world artists similar to the We Are the World recording. In fact, what if numerous music celebrities were joining in promoting the competition along with many professional associations of musicians and associations of teachers of music?
Can you imagine? That would result in almost no one with any interest in music not knowing about the competition.
Can you imagine that a great number of musicians be motivated to try to write a killer song for this competition?
Why will musicians, labels, others be interested in promoting such a competition?
Musicians are also people, and many are happy to support good causes when they can.
Not to mention, many will see this as an opportunity to promote their profession and grow the interest of young people to become musicians and songwriters.
For many, if they believe this initiative will be talked about in public for some time, this is an opportunity to get their brand associated with a good cause and mix with other movers and shakers of the industry.
Why would artists be interested in being part of recording the winning song in such a competition?
For many artists, if there was going to be a recording by top artists of that time, I would not want to be left out of that group.
It could work very similar to the Future We Want presentation competition. Firstly, candidates could present their songs in a local level competition.
The local public would be invited to vote for what they felt was the best song.
Winner at the local level would move on to the regional level.
The winner at the regional level would then move on to the state and the national, continental, and world levels.
Can you see how such a competition could attract a large number of candidates, a large number of voters, a large number of listeners?
You know, it's possible that this initiative might even get many songwriters, artists, and music producers to realize that there's an appetite for songs about Vision 2030, the SDGs, and the masses coming together to better the world. That might lead to many songs being released on these themes.
Yes, and also songs about setting high goals, aiming for the stars, and never giving up.
Thank you for painting that picture of a path by which hundreds of millions of people could be engaged in thinking and acting about the future we want, and even becoming conditioned to do things that make that vision a reality. Would you like to make some summarizing remarks?
To start off, we said that the goals should be set based on what is needed and not what we think we can do. But then we also said that the goal is to get a significant share of the world's population to recognize the need for and value of multilateralism to combat the many, some existential problems facing the world. To that end, we described several initiatives that could result in hundreds of millions of young students around the world participating in a readathon to improve reading skills while reducing the number of children in the world not in school due to hunger and extreme poverty.
And could result in hundreds of millions of students and their families being very proud to have been declared global citizen heroes because the hours they read changed and maybe saved the lives of millions of the world's poorest children.
And could result in tens or hundreds of millions of people supporting the reading efforts of their community's children by participating in community pep rallies and award ceremonies or pledging some donation, regardless how small, to address a major cause for each our students to read.
And in millions of young students discussing the future they want and the challenges involved in getting there and preparing presentations to compete in a global competition to identify the best presentations of Vision 2030, the future we want.
And result in tens of thousands of amateurs and professional songwriters writing songs about Vision 2030, the future we want.
And tens or hundreds of millions of people watching or listening to many presentations and songs about Vision 2030, the future we want, and voting or lobbying for the ones that they think are best.
And songs about the future we want and the struggle to get there being the most listened to songs in the world.
Would you agree that these are highly desirable outcomes? Do you think these will result in many people becoming aware of the challenges facing the world and becoming believers that people can do great things when they work together?
Vision 2030, the world that could be if all the SDGs were accomplished, can be achieved by actions of a few 100,000 or even a few tens of millions. It will take the majority of the population of the world pulling together on the same road in the same directions at the same time.
We described the sequence of events we might imagine would result in a high participation rate. There are open issues as to whether we can pull off these events, but if we can pull off a significant share of them, can you see them resulting in the participation of a large share of students around the world, and such participation having impact on families and participants on those participating directly in rallies and pledging donations and participating in honoring ceremonies and voting for their favorite Future We Want presentations and songs, and listening to songs about the future we want, and watching and reading news talking about the initiatives and the issues and local participants?
We said in the beginning, action starts with believing there is a path that could lead to the desired results. I hope most of you now see a path that could have great impact.
Now we have a challenge for all of you. If you think this initiative will be worthwhile and doable, tell your friends and everyone you can think about and ask them to pass them along. Get others imagining what can be done and recalibrating their own goals. In particular, communicate them to national and world leaders and people of influence. Let's make sure that the Secretary General, Bill Gates, Nobel Peace Prize winners, and so on don't wake up a year later with little to show for UN 75 and wishing they had known about the possibilities earlier.
In other words, join the movement and let's aim high and change the world. Let's dare to be great.
Well, I think you presented a credible path to mobilizing hundreds of millions and changing attitude, not only about the future we'd like to have and the problems we'll have to jointly overcome to achieve that future, but you've also presented a path that is likely to result in the very meaning of the word impossible being redefined for tens and hundreds of millions of people around the world. You said you wanted to get the audience imagining what it would mean for the mindset of the world and for having a chance to achieve the SDGs if hundreds of millions were to be actively engaged in pumping up the desire for a better world and actively engaged in some activities to dramatically better the world. And seeing a program of initiatives as a viable path that could result in getting hundreds of millions of young people to act in a way that both brings about a great good in the world, but that also shapes their attitude about wanting to do significant good and their confidence in being able to have massive impact in the world. And in the thinking that this is totally doable and should be done. I think you succeeded in that. Thank you. Okay, that was our panel discussion here. Hopefully you were all able to see that. I couldn't see, I only saw what was on my screen, so I'm hoping you all saw that well. The question is this a literacy project, or is it a fundraiser, or is it an education project? What is it? No, we said in the beginning, this is about mobilization. The best way to reach people is to engage their children or their community's children. So these set of projects have the potential to mobilize schools, teachers, students, promoters and sponsors, pledge donors, the attendees to pep rallies and award ceremonies, parents, the voters in competitions, anyone who's listening to music. So the idea was hopefully here to get you to be able to imagine what could be, to see a viable path that could result in those results, and to believe it is doable. I hope we've accomplished that. Thank you.
Indeed, you have accomplished that. Thank you very much to yourself and your panel. Thank you very much. I know members of the panel, they're here online with us as well. So let me say thank you very much for participating in that panel discussion there and enlightening us. It was a job well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So moving forward here, we want to bring forward a few individuals from the ICC cabinet who will come, and they will share a little bit about the departments that they represent from ICC and give us the way forward based on the department. Like we said earlier, each department basically represents different aspects of ICC that will be dealing with different matters. And I kid you not, we function in every area possible. We can advise, we can connect various individuals, organizations. We do practically everything. We have everyone. You name it, we have them. And these three individuals that are coming, they're coming to touch on three key areas. The first person to come up would be Her Excellency Reverend Bokoyi Burnley. She is from the Department of Women and Leadership Affairs. She will come and she will speak to us in regards to the Women's and Leadership Affairs Department from ICC. Ambassador Bukoyi, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And hello to everybody. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The Right Honorable Reverend Dr. Phillip Phinn, thank you so much for creating this platform for us. And I just also want to take this opportunity to greet everyone, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and the amazing youth that gave that thought-provoking contribution just now. By the way, I agreed with everything you guys said. So now I really need to go sit down and rethink, because we possibly cannot do all right? Or maybe we can, judging from the way you guys are going, maybe we can, you know, but that was beautiful and that was encouraging and really inspiring. And truly there is hope. When I hear the youth talk like that, I know there is hope for us. So without wasting much time, I'm going to give a little 3-minute statement, because that's all the time I got, about the future we want, the UN we need, and the international consulting cabinet we need. Now, the first thing that we believe we should be doing going forward is taking a holistic empowerment for a holistic approach to the empowerment of the vulnerable, particularly the women and the girl child. While we are being mindful and appreciative of the United Nations steadfastness and their commitment to serve humanity through the SDGs, and while we are also being cognizant that the COVID-19 global pandemic season has had a really devastating effect on the gains that had been made towards Agenda 2020, however, we are hopeful that these very same trying circumstances will create in everyone an overwhelming, compassionate need to drive even more purposefully and aggressively toward the accomplishment of all the SDGs, and paying specific attention and priority given to the following. The following SDGs are real priorities, we believe. SDG 1, ending poverty. 3, ensuring healthy lives. 4, quality education. 5, gender equality. And 6, peace, justice, and strong institutions. We believe that these ones form the epicenter of the betterment of women and the girl child, and consequently the betterment of humanity. However, a new surge of every kind of resources is needed, because the kinds of evils facing women and the girl child is mutating so fast that the old and even trusted treatment systems are coming up short. So, through multilateralism, the organism of the United Nations will have the agility it needs to keep up pace with the ever rapidly changing global situations. It will significantly expand its reach globally. It will network better and provide a holistic approach to the empowerment of the very vulnerable, in particular, the woman and the girl child. We also want the empowerment of the woman and the girl child to be interpreted in the broadest terms, not just stopping at academic and economic empowerment, but going further to empower the woman and the girl child to stand up for justice and peace for herself, not as a victim, and for other women, to protect her and other women from harm and violence. The women's self-defense trainings that surpass just physical resistance is not enough. It should also incorporate self-awareness training, psychological, spiritual, verbal, emotional training to help these women and girls to be able to de-escalate potential violent situations. It takes so many minutes for the police to respond to your 911 call. You better have something up your sleeve to be able to help yourself. And that's what we hope that, you know, some of the trainings will be geared towards. How much good would it do if we gave her an education, a job, provided her with health care, and then not do enough to protect her and her resources from injustice and harm? She'll become like a valuable city without defenses. We want this for women and girls all over the world, that we want a future where the women and the girl child is no longer a victim and will not allow herself to become one, because she and society has had a change of mindset due to the fact that her empowerment was holistic, executed in the broadest possible sense. We are honored to have a team of racially diverse, motivated, compassionate women leaders from diverse socioeconomic, geopolitical, spiritual, and intellectual backgrounds working in unison. In spite of the crippling, really devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has put a damper on Agenda 2030's progress, we here are reaffirming our commitment to the SDGs in line with the work of the International Consulting Cabinet and the United Nations General Assembly to build the future we want and the United Nations we need to accomplish this task. We are together in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Bakui. Thank you very much for giving us that brief nugget in regards to the women and girls. Next, we have Her Excellency Dr. Diana Connolly. She serves as one of our International Kingdom Ambassadors, chaplain ambassadors. She also serves as one of the executive directors with the John Maxwell team, and she also serves as the SDG Education USA and Global Vice President for Leadership and Youth Education. Today, she will also be presenting to us on behalf of these two organizations, which is the Center for SDG Global Education, as well as WULMI and ICC. Dr. Diana Connolly, over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Devon, our moderator. Good afternoon, our visionary, the Right Honorable Dr. Phillip Phinn, Chief Governor, Northeastern Affairs USA, Her Excellency Dr. Ada Okika, distinguished excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to present the statement on youth and preparing the next generation of leaders. If you have my slides up, that would be great, but if not, I can carry on. Greatest success for tomorrow starts with the investment we make in developing our youth. Human resource professionals reports that 63% of millennials and Gen Zers, who represent half of the world's population and rising workforce, feel that their leadership skills are not being developed. The I Lead Youth curriculum developed by the John Maxwell Leadership Foundation combines values-based leadership with an opportunity to practice self-leadership and peer-to-peer leadership, and is now deployed in 30 countries with 1.2 million youth engaged in Year 1 curriculum I Choose to Lead, which is connecting values and leaderships both in person and virtual sessions. With Youth Gather Global Initiative and the International Consulting Cabinet, we have an opportunity to collaborate to develop the next generation of leaders and set them up to make our world better with a sustainable future that we want. We are clear on the 4 E's of the Youth Gather Global Initiative: education, empowerment, entrepreneurship, and exchange programs, where our focus is to engage youth for global action around SDG 4 and SDG 8. It is vital and essential to engage and consult with governments and specifically ministries or departments of education as our key partners for a clear path to successfully and effectively advocate for youth. The time for new thinking and leadership on the realities of our human existence and how our society operates is now. We must make a covenant to deliver the future now because, number one, we do not walk into the future. We deliver the future we want and need by how we prepare and make room for potential to succeed. And two, the legacies of greatness across the nations are in our youth. And so as we sit at this global leadership table, to accept the responsibility to build great nations and a better world by designing and developing the future we want and need, we must understand that it is what you permit that persists. So let us be very clear. While we may not be responsible for the nation we inherited from our parents will not be responsible for the nation that our children will inherit from us. That responsibility is solely ours. The time has come when we're not able to afford the luxury of self-deceit. The greatest question that our youth, children, and grandchildren will ask is not, how did we get here, but what did you do to get us here? And we must have an answer. We look forward to your collaboration over the next decade of action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Connolly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we will have Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. April Ripley. She is the Director General of WOLMI ICC International Affairs and Office of Protocol. She is the main representative for WOLMI to the UN in Geneva. She is a consultant, a strategist, an author, a speaker, global change agent. She's also an ambassador of civility and advocate for a positive and balanced development for a betterment of humanity and global society. She is also one of the certified John Maxwell leadership personnel as well, trainers. So at this time, let me welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. April Ripley. Dr. Ripley, over to you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you, Ambassador Bannister. To His Excellency, the Right Reverend Honorable Dr. Phillip Phinn, thank you so much for your vision for WOLMI's ICC. To Dr. Aida Kika, what can we say? This afternoon has been phenomenal. Wonderful job to be here to partner with you as a fellow colleague and ambassador. As you are in the Northeastern Affairs, we celebrate you and we honor you for the work that you've done in pulling all of this together. To my fellow distinguished colleagues and ambassadors and fellow global change agents who have been a part of this entire afternoon, I say thank you, thank you, thank you for the opportunity. I love this because what I'm going to share for just the next few minutes actually culminates into the SDG number 17, which is for partnerships. So we've heard the 5 Ps of the SDGs that were conveyed very deftly by Dr. Aida. And then we realized that we have to not just have all of these plans and goals, but we need to look at the impact and influence of NGOs. Mr. Graham shared that. And then Dr. Judy came and talked about the Phoenix. I am actually located in Atlanta as I speak to you this afternoon, and that is the symbol of our city. Atlanta's history being one that was burned to the ground during our nation's civil war, and yet the Phoenix, we rose from the ashes. And I believe that this moment that we find ourselves in with COVID is not merely a crisis moment, but it's a turning point. From the Greek word, it means a pivotal point in history. And so this is where we are. And as we just heard the young leaders of today, our future looks very bright, and I'm sure we all can attest that. Yeah. To hear the involvement of our youth on various actives of engagement in areas of not just private, but also public. So the PPPs coming together to build a better society. When we talk about diplomacy and protocol, we talk about a soft power. We always look at it as the niceties of making sure that, events are planned or, that gifts are given. But there's a large amount of diplomacy that also helps to build rapport and to foster relationships and helping to facilitate the multilateral partnerships that the United Nations has called for since its inception. And so in building the future that we want, the UN that we want, and moving forward, it is important that we look at the people that must protect the planet, but come together in peace to build relationships that will lead to the prosperity of our nations. Protocol and etiquette are built on 3 foundations, and this is what we, as the ICC cabinet, look to: the respect, consideration, and honesty. Cultural awareness, celebrating not just the differences, but also the similarities. What makes us human? And what is it that every human wants to be? Acknowledged, valued, and appreciated. to feel a significance in their being, to experience civility and empathy, that we are, as Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State, says, that we're able to put ourselves into the shoes of another person, because it's only at that moment are we able to understand what motivates them in order to build and solve problems together. You know, Margaret Mead said this. She says, you know, there is nothing that's too hard for a small group of concerned citizens to change the world, because indeed it's the only thing that ever has. And I think we've seen that this afternoon in all the presentations that have been shared. And we realize that diplomacy also, though it may seem a micro move, it can have macro effects. So whether it's the pen that's used to sign an accord, or even the location of where a peace treaty is formed or discussions are held, all of these things are important to cultivating, again, the relationships that we want to build. We sit here today in a pandemic that for the first time in history has affected the entire globe, COVID. And although we're distanced physically, we are more socially connected. And we give this into what we call the fourth revolution, AI, and what we in diplomacy like to call the age of collaboration. Because now, more than ever, we must collaborate together across borders, across fields of aspects that influence us in humanity, from medicine to finance to business to arts to entertainment and to education. So what began in 1648 historically, just to recognize the sovereignty of nations, is now fast forwarded into a global reach of where we see nations that are looking to how to best protect and serve their citizens. But we can't do it alone. We must do it together. And so I remind us as I close, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., says that we are all tied in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied together in a single garment of destiny, that what affects one directly affects another indirectly, because we are a world house. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ripley. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much to the three young ladies who have spoken to us such beautifully on these three areas. At this time, moving forward, we're down to our two last speakers, and then we will be wrapping up. So I think we should be wrapping up in like 15 minutes. Anyone tired? I hope you're not tired, you know. Please don't be tired. Don't be. No. See, if we were in person, it would have been different, but we're not in person. But at the same time, I know everyone is having fun. I'm enjoying, I'm learning a lot. So at this time, we have coming to us to give us the resolution from the team for the action on the work of the ICC for the UN 75th year. We have coming to us now Her Eminence Archbishop Dr. Mary Floyd Palmer. She's the Deputy Chief Governor for the Northeastern USA here in the USA. So at this time, I will now hand you over to Her Eminence Ambassador Dr. Mary Floyd Palmer.
Thank you so much, Brother Moderator, Your Excellency, Dr. Devon, and certainly I would be remiss if we did not honor the visionary and the progenitor of this gathering, the Right Honorable Dr. Phillip Phinn, and certainly to Dr. Ada, to whom I am now yoked in serving as Deputy Chief Governor for the Northeastern Affairs USA. Much has been said, and I did have sort of a comprehensive statement that already has highlighted everything that has been said in this wonderful gathering today, in the celebration of 75th year of the UN, and particularly the work of the International Consulting Cabinet. I'm grateful that it is an initiative of the Word of Life Ministries International and that it has several goals. And I heard this repeatedly throughout, that we have to train, equip, and prepare kingdom ambassadors to become diplomatic consultants, advisors to government and private sector leaders, sharpen the skills within the network of experts, and to give the ambassadors and representatives the opportunity not only to develop, but to become an expertise and be available whenever needed for consultation, to again advise the work of the UN. For those of you that are my distinguished colleagues colleagues, as well as honorable guests, and of course, those of you who are distinguished excellencies. I'm certain that if we look at the word, I was most provoked, not only by Dr. Ada's presentation in regards to the 5 Ps of people, plant, prosperity, partnerships, and peace, but was really charged by the young people's presentation during that particular panel discussion. And it had me to almost scrap what I was going to say, because the young people have given us a charge. So let me just say that in conclusion, while we are being focused on the global goals, and we are hoping to be able to do that through collaborative sharing and participation, we must execute and deliver holistic education that will enlighten, empower, and encourage all to not only build, but enhance and bring to fruition a brighter future that we all will be very proud of. In the words of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away quietly yesterday, I will end with this quote: "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." I'm grateful to be part of a group that is joined together. It takes more than us, and I'm hoping by the way that we fight, others will join, and then the world will be what we want it to be until we go to our home in glory. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So with that being said, the International Consulting Cabinet, ICC, just to remind everyone, it's an initiative of Word of Life Ministries International, an NGO in special consultative status of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations under the UN 2030 agenda. The mission, once again, is to train, equip, and prepare kingdom ambassadors to become diplomatic consultants and advisors to government and private sectors leaders, sharpen our skills within the network of experts in our area of interest, and give the ambassadors and representatives the opportunity to develop their area of interest and expertise so that you will be ready when called to consult or advise about the work of the United Nations. The ICC, our further mission, is to help leaders learn to teach the nations, as well as have opportunities to attend UN, NGO, and the ECOSOC meetings in any of the United Nations offices. We want to extend an invitation to everyone to be a part of this venture, so that we can be able to go in and we can be able to advise the government. While we know governments, the public sectors and the private sectors and other organizations, they have their advisors, they have their agendas, they have their meetings. But then at the same time, it's good when we can be able to come together and go forth and render our services, our assistance, our knowledge to be able to help in these areas where we can be able to help to shape the future for everyone. So at this time, without any further ado, coming to give us the closing statement and the launching of our ICC SDG banner. Let me reintroduce back to you once again, the visionary, the founder, my father only. Go find your own father, everyone else. Go find your own father, it's my father. Let me introduce to you once again His Excellency, the Right Honorable Dr. Phillip S. Phinn, as he comes to launch the ICC SDG banner and give us the closing remarks. Dr. Phinn, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bannister. Is this the banner? Thank you.
Yes, sir. This is the banner.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all the presenters, speakers that have touched on so many, different areas to bring us awareness and to widen our knowledge concerning the SDGs, and the United Nations global goals. And as you can see here, Dr. Hada has done a tremendous job in putting, you know, these goals in what we call the 5P: the planet, the prosperity, the partnership, people, and peace. One of the things that ICC Consulting Cabinet, I mean, is big on, as you know, all ICC members are global peace ambassadors as well. And so, you know, the United Nations primary purpose, as it was outlined by one of our ambassadors from Nigeria, is that when they started 75 years ago, it's primarily as a peacekeeping and security organization, all right? But of course, you know, there can be no peace unless these other elements are in place. As you can see, you know, looking at the news with the demonstration out there happening in the United States, you will see signs which says no justice, no peace. So hence we have to deal with justice. If people can't find food to eat, then you can't expect to have peace and security, right? There will be stealing, there will be all kinds of criminal activity, because people are not going to sit by and just die, and whereas others, you know, have stuff that they need. And so we really believe that problems are meant to be solved. And you know, in Jamaica we have a saying, Jamaica no problem man, you know, Jamaica no problem. But for me it is a prophetic statement. You know, maybe those who coin it don't probably realize what they're saying. But as I look at the different solution that has come about in our day and time, when you look back and see that before the solution came about, there were problems, right? Before this technology called Zoom that we're using here now, it probably wouldn't have been possible for us to have a virtual meeting, I mean, like this, right? So somebody, I mean, saw a problem that could be solved by putting this technology, I mean, in place. Same thing with the cell phone, the same thing with, you know, electricity and all the different amenities that we so enjoy today was not always here. And so as we look at the problems that we face going into 2030 and even beyond, and trying to establish these 17 goals, right? I firmly believe that as we put our faith and trust in Almighty God, with God all things are possible. But God himself also said in Mark 9:23, all things are possible to him who believe. So we have to believe that as we put our trust and faith in God, then problems are meant to be solved. We are here to solve problems, and as we solve problems, we are rewarded, right? Every one of us in our specific field of endeavor, we're solving problem. You know, the dentist is solving, you know, your problem with your teeth, right? The mechanic solves problem with your motor vehicle, and every profession you can think of is bringing a solution to a problem. All right. So in Woolmine, ICC, we're not afraid of problem. We believe in solution. We believe in lighting candles rather than cursing darkness, because cursing darkness without action does not bring about solution. And so with that said, I want to declare, you know, this banner, you know, establish, launch, and want to thank the leadership under our Chief Governor, Ambassador Hada, along with her deputies, Archbishop you know, for the great work that they have done in putting, you know, this banner together, and also this forum, you know, that we are a part of, today. Once again, I just want to express my gratitude to all the presenters, all the speakers who have contributed to make this forum today a success. Thank you, and God bless you. And I yield back to our chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Phinn. And let me say once again, thank you very much to all of our speakers, all of our participants today. Everyone, thank you very much for taking your time out from your busy schedule. Dr. Ada, thank you very much for your instrumentality, your effort, your hard work in putting this together and gathering all of us together from various parts of the world to share our thoughts and our knowledge and our insights along the area of the UN 75th agenda and peace. To all of our guests, those of you that are here that braved the time and stayed here with us, for those of you who are on Facebook around the world and all the other social platforms that are watching us, thank you very much as well for being a part and for giving us an ear so that we can be able to speak into your life and we can be able to educate you more. One thing I always say, one thing I always grew up with, well, two things. One is determination and perseverance is great gain. And whatever you have, it have value already. But here, what we're doing, we're coming to add value, add more value to what you have. So you can never have enough value inside of what you have. So if you feel what you have enough value, hey, fine. But we like to know that we can come and be a part and add more value to what you have. Because if someone comes to me and say, hey, I can add a little bit more value to what you have, I will take it because it will enhance, it will take me to another place. So thank you very much to everyone for being a part. Thank you very much to all of our listeners, all of our viewers, and to all of our panelists. Thank you very much, Dr. Phinn, for entrusting us in doing this and for gracing us with your presence today. Ladies and gentlemen, I now declare that this meeting, this video conference is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
We replace what we can be. We must be the first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We
will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere lives in extreme poverty. Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one wakes in the morning asking if there will be food today.
We
will live in a world where no child has to die from
diseases we know how to cure. And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world where
Everyone
goes to school.
And education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
full opportunities to thrive
And be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is content.
We will live in a world
Where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets
At home, at school, and at work. We will live in a world where there is sustainable energy for everyone.
heat, light, and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We will live in a world where economies prosper and new wealth
Lead to decent jobs.
for everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure and our
Best innovations
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world where prejudices and extremes of inequality are defeated.
inside our countries and between different countries, where people live in cities and communities
That are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
what we consume. Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth. We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
where we restore
and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
restore and protect
Life on land,
forests,
animals,
the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries, where all governments are open
and answer.
The justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
We're all countries and we their people.
Work together.
In partnerships of all kinds.
Reality. Let's get to work.
Let's make it
That's it. I guess that's all for today. And as my co-moderator have already summed up with that, just putting more into an ending point. Yes, indeed. I must say, like, it is a bit challenging. It is a bit complex. But what we really need to do that, we actually need to collaborate with each other. Civil societies, stakeholders, students, youth, government, nation has to collaborate with each other in order to achieve these goals. And of course, the aim is actually 1 decade left, and definitely together and supporting each other, hand to hand, shoulder to shoulders, and promoting especially the 17th goal, that is the partnership. Definitely we will be achieving all those goals positively. With that, I would like to say good night to everyone and have a good day to you, the rest of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
And
everyone.
thank you very much. And I would like to, at the end of the day, I would like to thanks to our media team, especially to Tony Hill. He's always there to helping us, our graphics team. And of course, I'm very, very thankful to Dr. Ada for organizing all those and guiding us to move ahead into that. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Such a long event. Thank you. Dr. Vanis is laughing.
Right, let's go.
Thank you. Thank you, your Chancellor. Thank you for your time all the way from Canada. Always supportive. God protect you. God will continue to lead you. The vision is now flying, and so shall it be.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. Thank you for many caps you wear, and you covered all in your presentation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve.
Thank you. And Tony, thank you. Nigeria is it 11 or 12 midnight? But to whom much is given, much is expected. So I'm not sympathizing with you. You are enough. You need to work harder. You need to keep on. So thank you. Yes, on Monday is the peace day. A lot. Women and peace, gender and peace, UN and peace, everything is on peace on Monday. No fighting, no, right from the bedroom, no fighting. Right.
Definitely.
No fighting. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Bannister.
Okay, everybody. God bless.
You're not on the road today. Thank you. Thank God I'm able to make you not to be on the road.
Go now. Let us go.
You can go to be on the road now. Go. Thank you, everyone. Ambassador Antoine, thank you for always there. He was the third person that called in and you start all day. Thank you, Ambassador Antoine, for always encouraging and supporting. Oh my God, I don't know how to say. And to Nigerian ambassador, of course. God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Forward.
All right.
It's 1 a.m. there, right? What's the time there?
It's 1:30 a.m.
Oh my God, I thought it's 1:30 p.m.
No, it's a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, everyone.
God continue to strengthen us. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.